Chapter 77 Inoki's Favoritism, Deidara Falls. It's like a man who, after marriage, discovered he had oligospermia and had no children with his wife for 30 years, thinking he would be childless, only for his wife to get pregnant and a checkup confirming it was his biological child. Inoki was in such a mood now, his joy overflowing. For a Wagakure, a village suffering from a talent gap and relying solely on an old man like him, what did a genius with 5 chakra natures and a massive chakra reserve mean? It was hope. It was the future. Make a Wagakure great again. Why does this detestable guy have such high talent? Kuratsuchi opened her mouth, her eyes full of surprise. Possessing all 5 chakra natures was no small matter. Its rarity was 10 times higher than that of Bloodline Limit Ninja in the ninja world. Of course, this referred to naturally born 5 natures, not those acquired through later training. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Most notably, innate natures allowed for more powerful ninjutsu and a higher ceiling, whereas acquired natures, no matter how much you trained, would always be somewhat inferior. Rinso's possession of all 5 chakra natures meant he would learn any ninjutsu quickly and powerfully. In the future, he would never be at a disadvantage against any enemy. Instead, he could counter them, which was a huge advantage. Of course, Inoki wouldn't be so pleasantly surprised by just that. Innate natures also related to a key point. That was bloodline limit. As is well known, a bloodline limit is essentially a ninjutsu obtained by combining 2 different chakra nature transformations. For example, boil release, lava release, scorch release, ice release. Having all 5 innate natures meant Rinso saved time and effort in training natures, and more importantly, it meant he had the potential to develop his natures to a profound level and even create his own bloodline limit. Of course, Inoki didn't want Rinso to develop his own bloodline limit. That would be too much trouble. What he wanted was for Rinso to inherit his legacy, that ninjutsu capable of annihilating everything, a bloodline trait superior to bloodline limits. Dust release. Imagine a ninja with vast chakra reserves who doesn't have to worry about the enormous consumption of dust release ninjutsu. And if he also learned his lightweight rock jutsu, he would be capable of leading a Wagakure to conquer the entire ninja world. Thinking of this, Inoki immediately said to Akatsuchi, Deidara, and Kuratsuchi, the ninjutsu instruction for the next month will be cancelled. This old man will personally teach Iwao all the knowledge about chakra nature transformation. Akatsuchi showed a surprised expression, but given his personality, he had nothing to refute. On the contrary, he fully understood Inoki's intentions. He also supported Inoki's decision. After all, unlike him, whose talent could be seen at a glance, and Kuratsuchi, whose talent was good, but nothing extraordinary, the setting where she hadn't awakened her bloodline limit yet. Rinso's talent was a genuine Kaga-level expert in the making, and it was not impossible for him to even reach the legendary levels of Ninja World God and Ninja World Azura in the future. After all, the most important aspect of a ninja was chakra. As long as a ninja had enough chakra, they would at least be Kaga-level. Just like a tailed beast, relying solely on its tailed beast ball, it was enough to become the nuclear weapon of various villages. And Rinso, with ample chakra and such ninjutsu talent, saying he could surpass Kaga-level in the future was not a lie. In comparison, even the extraordinarily talented Deidara was inferior. Setting aside the difference in chakra reserves, just in terms of personality, one was eccentric and obsessive, while the other was steady and reliable. Everyone knew which one to choose. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving, Deidara said indifferently. Anyway, he didn't want to learn any boring earth release ninjutsu. Ever since he discovered that clay and chakra could explode when combined, he had put all his efforts into clay ninjutsu. In his opinion, those practical earth release ninjutsu that Inoki spoke of were far less captivating than the explosion produced by a random explosive clay. That instantaneous explosion was simply the most magnificent sight. Inoki shook his head, helpless with Deidara. He knew Deidara's obsession with explosions, but Deidara's personality was set, and anything he said was useless. This caused him endless headaches. Fortunately, now there was Iwao. His Wagakure no longer had only Deidara as its future. Likes explosions? Then let him like them. As long as he didn't cause trouble, he couldn't be bothered to interfere. Iwao, come with this old man, Inoki said. Iwao. Inoki called again. Rinso snapped back to reality, his gaze retracting from Deidara. More precisely, it retracted from the dropped item. Deidara dropped. Explosive clay production. Pick up Y/and They barely exchanged words upon meeting, yet Deidara was generous, directly dropping his lifeline. However, compared to explosive clay, Rinso actually wanted Deidara's earth release talent more. That was absolutely top tier in the ninja world. After all, explosive clay itself was based on Earth release, and those subsequent explosion ninjutsu were essentially created by Deidara on the foundation of Earth release. This showed Deidara's talent in Earth release. It's just that it wasn't used in the right place in the original work. Otherwise, becoming its Suchikage would definitely not be an issue. He didn't immediately merge the explosive clay production method. Rinso and Inoki left. Well, it's better to follow Inoki to learn ninjutsu first. From Inoki's tone, it seemed he wanted to teach him dust release. Perhaps he could get dust release without relying on system drops? If that's the case, it's not bad either, Rinso thought. The training in Awagakure was put on the agenda. Hidden Cloud Village. Rinso, however, made no progress. Ever since Killer Bee could no longer teach him swordsmanship, he hadn't been assigned anyone to instruct him. It seemed the fourth Reikage, AI, also intended to observe him for a period. And this observation period seemed longer than Inoki's. A hidden cloud village with a wealth of talent, indeed, wouldn't open up to an outsider so quickly, Rinso thought. Of course, Rinso felt that this was also related to the fact that the talents displayed by his two aliases were not of the same magnitude. In Awagakure, his alias's displayed aptitude had the potential to become a super Kaga-level expert, whereas in Hidden Cloud Village, his alias only had the aptitude of a Kaga-level expert. It was perfectly normal for the level of importance to differ. It seems I should find an opportunity to show more talent, Rinso thought. Suddenly, a figure blocked his path. He didn't notice and bumped right into her. Duan. Rinso was pushed back a step by the recoil. He looked up and saw Samui, who was clutching her chest, her cheeks slightly flushed. Lin Sheng's pseudonym. Do you remember what you promised me? Rinso nodded. I remember, to help you strike a blow against Atsui. That's good. Come with me, Samui said, pretending nothing had happened. Rinso nodded, a flash of inspiration in his eyes, and said to Samui, after I help you, can you teach me some lightning release ninjutsu? Just now, he had thought that perhaps he could use Samui as a channel to indirectly show the fourth Reikage his lightning release talent. Chapter 78 Speedrun of Atsui, recognizing Sister Samui. Samui crossed her arms, creating a deep cleavage, and asked, Lightning release ninjutsu. Why the sudden interest? Lin Sheng's pseudonym casually made an excuse. I just saw someone use lightning release ninjutsu, and I thought it was very powerful, so I wanted to learn it. After all, when it comes to swordsmanship, it seems none of you can teach me, Lin Sheng's pseudonym said, showing a suitable expression of disappointment. Immediately, Samui felt a bit awkward and helpless. Kumogakure, one of the 5 great ninja villages, couldn't even find someone to teach Lin Sheng's pseudonym swordsmanship. It was too embarrassing. Although Samui felt that with the swordsmanship Rinso had displayed, the outcome wouldn't change, even in other ninja villages. So, Big Sister Samui, do you agree? To achieve his goal, Rinso squeezed his throat and obediently called her Big Sister. Upon hearing this, Samui didn't show it on her face, but she was very happy inside. To get this somewhat cold and aloof boy, Lin Sheng's pseudonym, to use such an intimate address gave her a great sense of accomplishment. In a much better mood, Samui said, All right, I'll teach you a lightning release ninjutsu afterward. Thank you, Big Sister Samui. Let's go quickly then. Okay, follow me. Kumogakure Training Ground. In the open space. Under Samui's guidance, Rinso successfully met Atsui. Atsui was a bit older than him and was currently attending the Ninja Academy, but at a glance, compared to the well-developed Rinso, it was hard to say who looked more mature. Especially since Rinso had a cool and steady expression, while Atsui was wildly swinging his sword in the air, shouting loudly. Atsui. It wasn't Samui shouting, but Atsui's verbal tick. He was shouting his own name, full of energy. Atsui. This time it was Samui speaking. Big Sister, you're here. What have you decided about me graduating early from the Ninja Academy? Atsui was still brandishing his sword, asking expectantly. Samui's expression was calm as she pointed at Rinso and said, If you could defeat Lin Sheng's pseudonym, I'll agree. Lin Sheng's pseudonym? That's too easy, right? Atsui was very happy. He knew a little about Lin Sheng's pseudonym. He was brought by his sister from outside the village, and it was said he had great talent. But good talent doesn't necessarily mean strong power. He had been training since he was young and had considerable skill in both swordsmanship and ninja sword techniques. Given that, could he still not defeat Rinso? Seeing Atsui so happy, Samui whispered to Rinso, Atsui thinks he's very strong and wants to graduate early from the Ninja Academy. I don't agree. You must give him a good beating. As long as it's not life-threatening, you don't need to hold back. As she spoke, a warm breath was exhaled into Rinso's ear. Do well, and I will reward you handsomely. Rinso shivered and instantly drew his sword from his waist. Atsui, attack. Then you better be careful. Atsui excitedly made his move. Clang. Atsui was knocked to the ground, screaming. Samui. So fast. Samui murmured. She had only vaguely seen Rinso block Atsui's attack with a single sword stroke, then casually use the flat of his blade to knock Atsui to the ground. All in all, it was at most 2 moves. How could this happen? Atsui endured the pain and stood up, disbelieving. I won't hold back. Atsui went all out, waves of fire surging from his sword. As he swung it, crimson flame trails were left in the air. Clang! Ah! Atsui fell to the ground again. Rinso sheathed his sword and said, "It was quite handsome, but that's all it was." Then, he looked at Samui. "Big sister Samui, can you teach me lightning release ninjutsu now?" Samui nodded, yes. Then, she kicked Atsui, who was lying on the ground, and said, "Don't ever think about graduating early again. Go home and wash your clothes later. I'm leaving first." With that, Samui no longer bothered with her brother and left with Rinso. It wasn't that she didn't care about Atsui. It was purely that she knew her brother's personality. This kind of setback was nothing, and it would be rare for him to stay quiet for 2 or 3 days. Thinking of this, Samui looked at Rinso walking beside her and thought, if only he were my brother. Oh right, if only he were my brother. If Rinso were her brother, she would not only have such a steady and promising younger brother, but she could also have Rinso constantly spur Atsui on, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Samui's eyes lit up, and she suddenly stopped. Rinso, following behind her, again bumped into her unexpectedly. Thump. The object he collided with was larger and more elastic than the previous time. Samui turned her head, blushing, ignoring the slight oddity, and asked Rinso, Lin Sheng's pseudonym, "Would you be willing to be my brother?" Rinso. Big sister Samui. Are you trying to get me for free? Rinso narrowed his eyes. No. Samui turned her head away. She wasn't as composed and calm as her future self, and being exposed by Rinso made her a little embarrassed. If you say no, then no. Rinso didn't argue. Samui gave a forced smile, feeling that the idea of taking Rinso as her brother was probably hopeless. However, before she could give up the thought, Rinso suddenly spoke. Even if it's for free, who can blame Big Sister Samui for being the closest person to me in Kyomobikure? Moreover, I always thought Big Sister Samui already considered me her brother. A sincere outpouring of words, combined with Rinso's normally cool demeanor, now showing a hint of awkwardness. In an instant, Samui felt her heart soften. She half knelt and directly pulled Rinso into her embrace. Of course you're my brother. His head buried in softness, Rinso mumbled. Can you let go? I'm having a little trouble breathing. Samui's body stiffened, and she quickly released Rinso and stood up. Don't worry, Big Sister won't take advantage of you. If you want to learn ninjutsu in the future, Big Sister will teach you everything, Samui promised. Rinso smiled indifferently. Then thank you, Big Sister. He wasn't interested in the ninjutsu Samui knew. On the contrary, the identity of a brother was the most valuable. After all, Samui was an important figure in the future Kyomobikure. Becoming Samui's brother would make some things much simpler. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been willing to acknowledge Samui as his sister after only half a month of acquaintance. He wasn't really parentless, friendless, and lacking love, as his persona suggested. In short, no matter what, he had indirectly infiltrated Kyomobikure, hadn't he? A few days later, a clear day, at the Konoha gate, 2 ninja stopped a merchant caravan for inspection. Inside one of the caravan's carriages, Karen poked her head out the window, secretly looking at Konoha's impressive gate, and couldn't help but say, "It's so big." Chapter 79 Sealing Technique. Soul Sealing. Karen and her daughter arrive in Konoha. Konoha Village. Outside the orchard, secret base. Rinso's hands moved so fast they were a blur, rapidly forming hand signs, and his soul floated out of his body into midair. Then, his soul body looked at a brown bear that was trapped in front of him. The brown bear was bound by would-release vines, unable to move, only able to let out fierce roars, wanting to tear Rinso to shreds. I hope it succeeds on the first try. In his soul body state, Rinso muttered, closed his eyes, and rapidly formed hand signs with both hands. Instantly, soul power surged from his palms and was projected half a meter into the brown bear's body. Roar, 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 roar. The roars grew fainter and fainter, and the brown bear visibly became listless, then closed its eyes and fell into a coma. Under soul perception, Rinso could clearly see that 90% of the brown bear's originally complete soul body was now directly sealed by his own soul power. When soul power doesn't match the physical body, it leads to a weakening of consciousness, resulting in a coma. It's done. Soul sealing. I really have to thank Orochimaru. Otherwise, try to research such a sealing technique, even with spiritualization technique as a foundation and relying on my original talent. I don't know how much time it would have taken. Rinso expressed his heartfelt gratitude, deciding that if Orochimaru did something bad in the future, he would give Orochimaru a chance to reform. Of course, it depended on his mood. With his soul returned to his body, Rinso felt much more at ease. A week had passed since he last asked Onma Yakumo about the options, and he had finally created a ninjutsu that could achieve the plan. A sealing technique of his own creation, soul sealing. Its effect was simple and brutal, just as he had done to the brown bear, using soul power to seal the opponent's soul power. It's a pity this sealing technique can only be used in the soul body state. Otherwise, it could definitely be used as a combat method. Rinso sighed, but he didn't care too much. He didn't lack means of combat now. What he lacked was time to integrate these methods and to fully improve his physical fitness and chakra volume. What's more, he went to Wagakure every day to learn from Inoki. Although to avoid exposure, he could only pretend to be a beginner for now, slowly learning about chakra's nature and shape transformation. But it was foreseeable that Inoki's expectations for him meant that teaching him dust release wouldn't be too far off. Once he learned dust release, he would be completely graduated in terms of offensive ninjutsu. Thinking this, Rinso suddenly raised his hand, and a small clay insect flew out from his sleeve. The small insect flew out and landed on the brown bear. Boom! The power generated by a clay insect, no bigger than a fingernail, completely blew up a normal-sized brown bear. And the chakra consumed to create this tiny clay insect was merely a drop in the bucket, recovering within a breath. It could be said that for the same chakra expenditure, the power brought by explosive clay's explosion was dozens of times that of normal ninjutsu. No wonder in the original work, Deidara, despite having only 8 spirit, his ninjutsu was evaluated as having the power to destroy a village. It turns out he leveraged the inherent characteristics of explosive clay. Rinso muttered to himself, developing a considerable interest in explosive clay. This secret technique, used by only Deidara in the original work, seemed to be no less effective than a bloodline limit, or even a bloodline selection. In the original work, Deidara had the strength of an elite jonin at 12, and by his mid-teens, he could rival a Kaga-level expert. The explosive clay secret technique was indispensable. It was like in his previous life, humans couldn't defeat large beasts, but relying on scientific principles, they created powerful weapons to easily defeat various beasts, using one's own weak power to activate a more powerful force. Besides its power, the characteristic of explosive clay being freely moldable also allowed for the development of nanoscale clay beasts and super-large clay dragons. It offered many ways to play. It could be said that if it weren't for being completely countered by lightning release, this explosive clay secret technique would not just be comparable to a bloodline limit, but would surpass it. For super-large creations, could I make a clay giant? Rinso, obsessed with Gundam ninjutsu, immediately thought of this aspect. After a brief thought, he decided to find time to try it out. For now, he planned to first resolve Onma Yakumo's matter. At the entrance of Konoha village, 2 gate-guarding chunin stopped a merchant caravan trying to enter the village and began to inspect the items under the covers in the carriages and on the cargo ship one by one. The merchants of the caravan and the subordinates responsible for transport and odd jobs all passed inspection. Soon, the gate-guarding chunin arrived at the carriage where the shadow clone Rinso was located. He opened the carriage door and looked at the 3 people inside, 1 man and 2 women. A woman in her 20s looked weak, and some unhealed bite marks were visible on her exposed arm. A young man in his teens wore a mask and had a strong build, giving a strong sense of security. Finally, there was a somewhat timid girl, leaning against the woman, with curious eyes. However, more than these, what made the gate-guarding chunin wary was the significant amount of chakra in the 3 people. Even the smallest girl seemed to have more chakra in her body than he did. Ninja! The gate-guarding chunin called his companion. Soon, the 2 chunin cautiously asked the 3 to get out of the carriage. After a brief inquiry with the caravan merchant, they learned that Rinso and the 2 women had paid to hitch a ride and immediately became alert. Trying to sneak into Konoha with a caravan? What's your purpose? The gate-guarding chunin asked. Mommy, Karen hugged Uzumaki Koyo's leg somewhat fearfully, but her gaze was directed at Rinso. She actually wanted to hug Rinso's leg more. She would feel more secure that way, but she was a little embarrassed. Go inform the 3rd Hokage that these 2 are survivors of the Uzumaki clan. After saying this, Rinso did not offer further explanation. The gatekeepers were not Kotetsu Hagain and Izumo Kamizuki yet, so he had no interest in conversing. Uzumaki clan? Hearing this somewhat familiar yet strange clan name, the gate-guarding chunin asked in confusion. That clan, which had been annihilated many years ago, was once an ally of Konoha, a renowned clan throughout the ninja world, but now some people hadn't even heard of it. The Uzumaki clan? Is it the Uzumaki clan from the land of whirlpools back then? The other chunin seemed to recognize them, confirming by looking at Uzumaki Koyo and Karen's red hair. Yes. Rinso nodded. Seeing this, the Chunin's expression became serious as he said, "Please wait here. I will report immediately. Go quickly and return quickly." Rinso was not in a hurry. After so many days in the carriage and reading so many books, he felt his temper had been mellowed and was no longer so impatient. Moreover, compared to settling Karen and her mother, he was more curious about how his main body would react upon learning that he had brought Karen and her mother back to Konoha village. Chapter 80 Identity Exposed. The real Hiruzen Sarutobi. The Chunin responsible for reporting quickly returned. And when he returned, an AMBU ninja was with him. Rinso sensed slightly that the AMBU ninja chakra amount was similar to Byakumo's earlier, likely indicating Jonin strength. "Come with me," the AMBU ninja, wearing a cat-faced mask, said coldly. Karen couldn't help but hug her mother's leg tighter. Rinso bent down slightly and patted Karen's head. "Don't be afraid. Okay." As if imbued with magical power, after Rinso spoke, Karen truly found courage and was the first to follow behind the AMBU ninja. Uzumaki Koyo couldn't help but chuckle. "It seems Karen trusts you more, Mr. Ronin." "Perhaps." Rinso also smiled and followed them. Soon, led by the AMBU ninja, Rinso skillfully walked into the Hokage's office building, arriving at a door. The AMBU ninja knocked on the door. "Knock, knock, knock. Enter." Hiruzen Sarutobi's aged voice came through. The AMBU opened the door, led Rinso and the two women inside, and reported, "Hokage-sama, they have been brought." You may leave first." Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was processing documents, didn't even lift his head. The AMBU ninja nodded in response and left the office. Then, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked up and at the three of them. His gaze first lingered on Uzumaki Koyo, and seeing the lingering bite marks, he couldn't help but shake his head. Next, he looked at Karen, who was not even as tall as the desk. Sensing the amount of chakra within her, he already knew her potential was not low. His eyes immediately lit up, and he nodded with a smile. Finally, his gaze fell on Rinso. His eyes first showed surprise, then a helpless smile, and finally approval. This change in his gaze made Rinso feel strange. He had disguised himself quite well. Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't have seen through him, could he? Hiruzen Sarutobi retracted his gaze, putting on his amiable smile again. "This old man is the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Konoha village and the Uzumaki clan have a friendly relationship, so feel free to settle down here. Someone will take you to register your household and arrange accommodation shortly." Hearing Hiruzen Sarutobi's arrangements, Uzumaki Koyo quickly nodded. "Thank you, Hokage-sama." Little Karen imitated her. "Thank you, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded and asked for their names. After learning the names of the mother and daughter, he said to them, "Little Karen has abundant chakra and great talent. If she wants to become a powerful ninja in the future, she can start training now. If you are willing, this old man happens to have a recommended place." "A powerful ninja?" Karen glanced at Rinso and said firmly, "I want to become a powerful ninja." Uzumaki Koyo chose to support her daughter and quickly thanked Hiruzen Sarutobi. "Thank you, Hokage-sama. May I ask where this place you mentioned is?" Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at Rinso, intentionally or unintentionally. In Konoha's training grounds, there are many children Karen's age training together, and this old man has also arranged for ninja to guide them. If Karen wants to go, they will be happy to accept her. Uzumaki Koyo showed a grateful smile. "Okay, thank you, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded, summoned an AMBU, and had him escort Karen and her mother away. At this point, only Rinso and he remained in the office. Just when Rinso thought Hiruzen Sarutobi would first question his identity and purpose, Hiruzen Sarutobi's first words made him shiver. "Little Rinso, how did you end up looking like this?" As soon as these words were spoken, Rinso understood. He was truly exposed. But the question was, why? Rinso took off his mask, revealing the handsome face beneath it, which looked very similar to his childhood self, but was clearly his grown-up appearance. "Grandpa Third, how did you find out?" Rinso showed a curious expression, checking his disguise, and found no elements that could connect to himself. Seeing this, Hiruzen Sarutobi let out an old, knowing laugh. "Little Rinso, your appearance shows no flaws, but Grandpa would never mistake the chakra within you." Chakra? Rinso realized it belatedly. It turned out that he didn't make a mistake in his appearance, but rather in concealing his chakra. This wasn't due to his carelessness, but rather because he had never received any training in this area. Kakashi and Shursui wouldn't have thought that Rinso would leave the village on his own, so there was no need to teach him the concept and methods of concealing chakra at that time. "It seems I'll have to attend the Ninja Academy in the future. Many essential pieces of knowledge can only be fully learned there." Rinso made a decision in his heart, and before that he planned to directly ask Kakashi and Shursui to teach him about chakra concealment. Little Rinso, now that you've learned the Flying Thunder God, you'll hardly encounter any danger. Grandpa understands that you might be very curious about the ninja world, and so you want to go out and see it. But Grandpa must warn you, many ninjutsu and bloodline limits in the ninja world are hard to guard against. Without intelligence, even with the Flying Thunder God technique, you might not be safe. So, when you're out and about, remember to be cautious. Hiruzen Sarutobi knew that Rinso could use the Flying Thunder God. He couldn't restrict Rinso from going out, so he could only earnestly admonish him. Rinso listened to everything and took it to heart, not being conceited at all. After all, the ninja world revealed in the original work was only a part of it. Many bizarre bloodline limits and secret ninjutsu could truly put him in a difficult spot. So, Shadow Clone is truly a good thing. Grandpa Third, I've taken it all in. As for Karen, I'll help her integrate well into Konoha, Rinso said, then intended to leave. Seeing this, Hiruzen Sarutobi stopped him. Little Rinso, don't rush off. This time, you've brought 2 seeds of the Uzumaki clan back to the village, which is a great deed. Would you like to exchange it for a ninjutsu? Exchange for ninjutsu? Rinso's heart immediately stirred. Recalling the ninjutsu scrolls he saw in the storage room last time, he immediately made a decision. Then, I'd like to exchange for the sealing technique, for symbol seal. For symbol seal? Very well. Grandpa will have someone deliver the ninjutsu scroll to you shortly. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded in agreement. At this point, both of them were happy. Rinso then started walking towards the door, and Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't stop him again. However, just before stepping out, Rinso suddenly paused and asked Hiruzen Sarutobi, Grandpa Third, when the land of whirlpools was destroyed back then, why didn't we help? Hiruzen Sarutobi was startled. After a moment of silence, he said, the second Hokage died in battle back then, and I had just taken office. Konoha's strength was greatly diminished, making it difficult to contend with the 4 great shinobi villages, which is why we didn't offer help. At this point, Hiruzen Sarutobi also had something unsaid, that Uzumaki Mito was already unable to exert much power, and the Nine-Tailed could be unsealed at any time, making Konoha somewhat hesitant. However, Rinso did not fully believe Hiruzen Sarutobi's explanation and pressed on, even if it wasn't possible to help resist the attacks of the 4 great shinobi villages, couldn't a good number of Uzumaki clan members have been saved? Hiruzen Sarutobi lightly tapped his knuckles on the desk, then picked up his pipe and took a puff. Choking smoke filled the office. His voice was low, colder than ever. Little Rinso, the land of whirlpools and Konoha are allies, but also merely allies. Chapter 81, The Restarted Infiltration Plan. Farewell to Karen and her daughter. With his questions answered, Rinso didn't ask anything further. He understood what Hiruzen Sarutobi meant. It was that Konoha's strength at the time was limited, and compared to using it on the Uzumaki clan, who were just allies, it was naturally better to use it on Konoha village. Moreover, the 4 great shinobi villages coveted the Uzumaki clan sealing techniques, so why wouldn't Konoha? The Uzumaki clan were allies, true, but ultimately, they weren't their own people. Rinso wasn't a real child, so he had no trouble accepting these facts. He asked these questions not out of sympathy for the deceased Uzumaki clansmen, but purely out of curiosity. Ultimately, Konoha was his home. If his own head of the family were to use the family's strength for outsiders, he would be the first to object. Secret base. Rinso sat on the ground, his head aching slightly as he browsed through the vast memories brought back by his shadow clones. From leaving Konoha, to taking a wrong turn and ending up in the land of grass, rescuing Karen and her mother, returning by carriage, and the conversation in the Hokage's office. The last memory was of the shadow clone teleporting to the secret base and dissipating on the spot. He was really idle, reading so many books these past few days, even finishing Ica Paradise, which I, as the main body, haven't had time to read, Rinso grumbled. Then, a feeling of joy welled up in his heart. Although the initial purpose of the shadow clone was to teach Kakuzu a lesson, it got sidetracked. But as for the result, he was very satisfied. First and foremost was Uzumaki Karen, a truly high-value character. In their foreseeable future interactions, he should be able to obtain all the good things from her. Not to mention her Uzumaki Bloodline, which is even purer than Naruto's. Just her awakened special abilities, each comparable to high-level ninjutsu, would also be helpful to him. In addition, he had no objections to the 4-symbol seal chosen as a reward for the shadow clone, bringing back Karen and her mother. After all, it was the same idea. He himself really wanted the 4-symbol seal. Especially after learning the 5-element seal, he gained a deeper understanding of sealing technique. He then realized a very important point. Sealing technique was the underlying logic of the entire ninja world. From sealing barriers, cursed seals, 5-element seal, and Reaper Death seal. to the six paths, Chibaku Tensei that sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, all were essentially sealing techniques. No matter the field, no matter the combat power, sealing technique had means to deal with it. Now he had learned the five-element seal and developed a soul sealing technique himself, which counted as barely mastering two sealing techniques. The reason for saying barely was because his soul sealing technique essentially relied on his own powerful soul strength to be performed. Normal sealing techniques, however, could seal the strong with the weak. For example, Naruto's father sealed the nine-tailed. Despite the huge difference in chakra volume, he sealed it just like that, and the nine-tailed had no way to resist. All in all, the gains from the shadow clone were significant. Rinso also realized that there were many treasures in the ninja world that could be unearthed. His shadow clone this time had stumbled upon something good. So, after this, he could actively send out shadow clones to travel around, collecting treasures and high-value individuals. Incidentally, Rinso also remembered an idea he had put off for a long time. That was to send shadow clones to Sunagakure and Hidden Mist Village to make contact with high-value individuals and obtain their good things. Previously, because there were many ninjutsu to learn and many things to do, which required many shadow clones, this led to him being a bit overwhelmed, so he paused this plan. Now, with various ninjutsu learned and the soul sealing technique created, the need for numerous shadow clones had decreased. He should be able to barely sustain 6 long-term shadow clones, the 4 great shinobi villages, plus Konoha Hospital and Ninja World travels. He formed hand signs. 3 shadow clones were released accordingly. Because their memories and thoughts were connected, there was no need for communication. The 3 shadow clones, upon appearing, immediately used the Flying Thunder God technique to leave and attend to their respective tasks. The 2 destined to infiltrate the 2 great shinobi villages go without saying. The shadow clone assigned to travel the ninja world had a first complete unfinished business. For example, Kakuzu, who had recently been frantically broadcasting his location, as if waiting for someone to come and kill him. And also, to bid farewell to Karen and her mother. On the outskirts of Konoha village, Uzumaki Koyo, holding her daughter Karen's hand, followed an ANBU ninja with some trepidation to a residence on the village's outskirts. This residence was quite spacious, 2 stories high, with a balcony on the 2nd floor, clearly a large house capable of accommodating many people. Being assigned such a nice house, Uzumaki Koyo immediately felt undeserving and asked the ANBU ninja leading the way, "Ninja-sama, is this beautiful residence really for my daughter and me?" The masked ANBU ninja's voice was calm. "Hokage-sama said that you were brought by that person and can be trusted, so you must be arranged a good place to live. It's just that there are no vacant houses in the inner ring of the village right now, so we could only arrange one on the outskirts. We hope you understand." "No, I should be the one thanking you. It's truly a bother." Uzumaki Koyo bowed repeatedly in gratitude. The ANBU ninja instantly moved aside and said, "If you want to thank someone, thank the right person. I have already registered your identities and brought you to your residence. My mission is complete, so I will leave now." With that, the ANBU ninja left with a shunshin, not giving Karen and her mother a chance to reply. So, the mother and daughter, with nothing more to say, pushed open the door and entered the house. The interior decoration of this 2-story residence was not bad. The hard furnishings were complete, with fewer soft furnishings, but sofas, dining tables, and the like were all present. This luxurious house made the mother and daughter, who had been constantly on the move and were content even living in a straw hut, feel a sense of unreality. Did they truly deserve to live in such a nice house? Knock, knock, knock. A knock sounded at the door. The mother and daughter immediately thought, "Sure enough, the ANBU ninja must have gotten the wrong house, and now they're coming to take us to our real residence." However, when they opened the door, standing outside was not the ANBU ninja they imagined returning, but the man who had brought them out of that hellish hidden grass village. "Brother Wanderer." Uzumaki Karen suddenly felt a sense of security, and she ran forward, stopping about half a meter in front of Rinso, her eyes shining as she looked up at him, her gaze filled with immense admiration. How's it here? Are you satisfied?" Rinso stroked Karen's head and asked Uzumaki Koyo. "Satisfied, thank you so much." With Rinso's words, Uzumaki Koyo finally believed that this was for her and Karen to live in, and her gratitude was boundless. "Is that so? That's good." Rinso nodded, then pulled out a silver note from his. "Take this money to buy daily necessities and essentials, or even open your own shop and start business. I won't be in Konoha, so remember to take good care of yourselves," Rinso instructed. Upon hearing this, Karen and her mother both froze, and Karen's eyes were filled with disbelief. "Brother Wanderer, aren't you staying in Konoha?" Chapter 82. I will never like him, not in this lifetime. "Yes, I won't stay in Konoha," Rinso replied. Karen, at a loss, tugged at Rinso's sleeve. Why? Rinso smiled faintly. I still have unfinished business outside. Now that I brought you to Konoha, I naturally have to leave. Can't you stay? Karen held on tighter, not wanting to let go. Uzumaki Koyo, seeing this, frowned slightly and said, Karen, no more being willful. Karen pursed her lips and released his sleeve. Be good. From now on, live well with your mother in Konoha. I'll be leaving first. Later, children your age will come to you and help you integrate into Konoha. Remember not to refuse them. Rinso didn't feel much reluctance. He ruffled Karen's red hair one last time, waved his hand, and walked out of the residence. Inside the residence, Karen was visibly downcast. She couldn't help but bury herself in her mother's arms, quietly sobbing. Uzumaki Koyo didn't know what to say. After all, even she herself didn't want Rinso to leave. It wasn't a feeling of love. It was just, when you're on the brink of death, when your life has hit rock bottom, someone is willing to pull you up and even bring you to a paradise you never even imagined. Naturally, a sense of reliance would arise in her heart. She herself was fine, knowing this feeling was one of gratitude. But for a child like Karen, it might not be the same. In the afternoon, Konoha training ground. Everyone arrived early and began their training. However, Tintin, Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo were searching for Rinso's figure, unable to settle down. Suddenly, Rinso's figure appeared at the entrance of the training ground, immediately drawing the attention of the few girls. So much so that they didn't even notice the red-haired girl Rinso brought with him. Rinso-kun, Hinata, blushing, stepped forward and called out affectionately. Hinata, perhaps accustomed to patting heads in his shadow clone adult form. Rinso inherited the habit. Seeing Hinata's soft, dark blue hair, he instinctively reached out and stroked it. Hinata let out a cute whimper, but she didn't faint. Instead, her eyes were filled with happiness. It seems Hinata has made great progress. Rinso was very happy that Hinata didn't faint. After all, it wasn't a good thing and needed to be properly trained early, otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to hug him later. Thinking this, Rinso showed a bright smile. Hinata stared blankly, white steam suddenly rising from her head. She suddenly remembered the words she accidentally overheard her parents say when she woke up in a daze in the middle of the night. Rinso is a good child. It would be great if he could be my son-in-law in the future. Don't worry, Hinata is a wonderful child. In a few years, we can try to arrange an engagement. Thump. Hinata. Rinso caught the fainting Hinata, his face full of helplessness. Placing her on a nearby bench, Rinso was about to introduce the person he brought when Tintin and the others eagerly spoke up one by one. Rinso-kun, my father has already resumed work, and he said he'll make your kanai as soon as possible, Tintin said. Understood. Please tell Uncle not to rush. I'm not in a hurry, Rinso said gently. Tintin showed a cute expression, poking her fingers and saying, also, my father wants to invite you to dinner at our house tonight. About that, Rinso hesitated slightly, but when he saw Tintin's face instantly turn incredibly sad after he showed reluctance, he immediately changed his mind. Yes, I'll come tonight. That's great. Tintin smiled happily, a very easily satisfied personality. Now there should be a chance to introduce her. Rinso was about to speak again. Rinso, here you go. Ino slightly turned her head, offering a lunchbox with both hands. This is food. Ino spoke much less, perhaps out of shyness. Beside her, Yakumo narrowed her eyes slightly. She also took out her lunchbox and handed it to Rinso, a hint of weakness appearing on her face. Rinso-kun, this is the meal I made for you. I hope you don't dislike it. Yakumo's frail appearance immediately made Rinso feel that if he didn't eat all of her food, it would be a terrible sin. Rival, Ino thought, looking at Yakumo. No match. Yakumo glanced at Ino, feeling the outcome was already obvious. In the same situation, her weakness was clearly a bonus, and Rinso would definitely choose her. Just as Yakumo thought she was about to win, Rinso extended both hands and took both her and Ino's lunchboxes. I'll eat them both, all right? Rinso said helplessly, choosing not to upset either of the girls. Upon hearing this, Ino showed an expression that said, that's more like it. Yakumo, however, pursed her lips slightly, her eyes downcast. She clearly had the advantage, but Rinso chose to treat them equally. Didn't that essentially mean that, under equal conditions, he would choose Ino? Didn't that mean she was inferior to Ino? Overthinking, Yakumo thought, making herself sad, and decided to ignore Rinso and never bring him food again. Rinso, who didn't know Yakumo was upset after he chose to treat them equally, finally had a chance to introduce the person behind him. He stepped aside, revealing the red-haired girl behind him, and introduced her. Uzumaki Karen, she just arrived in Konoha from another place. She'll be training with everyone from now on. A girl? Tintin and Ino immediately scrutinized her, and even the fainted Hinata abruptly sat up from the chair and looked over. Speaking one way but acting another, Yakumo, who had just decided to ignore Rinso, couldn't help but look at Uzumaki Karen. She examined her from head to toe. Red hair, black-rimmed glasses, and facial features under the glasses that hadn't fully developed yet, but were very cute. The four girls suddenly had a bad feeling. How could another one come? Karen swallowed, feeling the atmosphere was a bit off. Having wandered with her mother since childhood, coupled with her bloodline talent, she was quite adept at perceiving emotions and good and evil. After observing, Karen came to a startling conclusion. They all liked this boy named Mariki Lin Sheng. Recalling, this Rinso was the boy her brother Wanderer had told her about, the one who would come find her. Now it seemed that to be chosen by brother Wanderer, this Rinso was truly not simple. Karen steadied her uneasy heart and said, I hope to be good friends with everyone and that you can accept me. Can you teach me where to start training? As soon as she finished speaking, she immediately added, I won't compete with you for him. I already have someone I like. Hearing Karen's blunt and bold statement, the four girls were a bit uncomfortable, but hearing Karen say she already had someone she liked, they indeed breathed a slight sigh of relief. Seeing the four girls' relieved expressions, Karen mused to herself, they really all like him. And rightly so, he is very handsome after all. However, you can like him if you want, but I won't like him. Never in this lifetime. She was a devoted person. Her heart already belonged to someone. So, no matter how handsome or charming Rinso was, she would absolutely not like him. She, Uzumaki Karen, would absolutely not be like them, liking Mariki Lin Sheng. Chapter 83 Soul Seal, Karama Yakumo drops. Soul talent. Karen integrated smoothly. Especially after expressing that she had no intentions towards Rinso, she instantly gained the approval of the four girls. After that, when the others learned that Karen was brought by Rinso, they also had no sense of resistance. Naruto, in particular, was very friendly after hearing that Karen was also an Uzumaki. Thus, the morning's training concluded successfully. As a new member, Karen was not left behind. Possessing the Uzumaki bloodline, she easily kept up with everyone's progress. Yakumo, on the other hand, despite joining the group earlier than Karen and consistently training hard, always appeared physically very weak, with a pale complexion from morning till night. Today, she also finished her training earlier than the others, sitting on a bench, panting, not saying a word, but her eyes filled with envy and unwillingness. Seeing this, Rinso walked over and sat beside her. Can't your body hold up anymore? Rinso asked. Yakumo didn't answer, still panting. She hadn't forgotten that she was still angry with Rinso and intended to ignore him. Rinso didn't mind, assuming Yakumo was too tired to speak. He looked at the sweating Yakumo and grinned. Hey. Yakumo looked over, a little confused. Was Rinso mocking her? She couldn't help but ask. Why are you laughing? Rinso was still smiling. Because this might be the last time I see you like this. What do you mean? Yakumo hadn't reacted yet. It means I found a way to achieve the solution you chose, Rinso said, standing up and pulling Yakumo away. Yakumo understood now, but she was even more confused. A solution? Sealing her soul power? How could that be possible? Confused, in an instant, the Flying Thunder God technique was activated. Yakumo had already been brought to the secret base by Rinso. Stay still and don't move. If you feel anything unusual later, absolutely do not resist. Can you do that? Rinso confirmed. Yakumo didn't understand anything and quickly asked, what unusual feeling? Why shouldn't I resist? What exactly is going on? Rinso explained, based on the spiritualization technique and sealing technique I've mastered, I've developed a soul sealing technique. This sealing technique uses my own soul power to seal another person's soul power. Yakumo, your soul power is too strong. If you consciously resist, I won't be able to perform the sealing. I know this is very dangerous, and you might be uneasy. If you feel you can't trust me that much yet, this can also be done later. No, I trust you. Yakumo looked at Rinso, her eyes filled with immense trust. Rinso was slightly moved, nodding, then get ready. He then formed hand seals, chakra flowed, and the spiritualization technique activated, his soul leaving his body. His body instantly lost consciousness and slumped to the ground. Yakumo's expression immediately panicked. She rushed forward and shook his body. Rinso-kun. Don't be afraid, Yakumo. Rinso's voice suddenly rang out. Yakumo was startled. It'll be over soon. Don't resist. Relax your mind. Rinso spoke again, his voice entering Yakumo's mind. Yakumo didn't understand what was happening, but she immediately relaxed her mind as Rinso instructed. Then, she felt a strange soul power enter her body, and it began to manipulate her soul. Instinctively, she wanted to fight back. However, just before retaliating, she remembered Rinso's words and forcefully suppressed the urge. Subsequently, within her soul, the strange soul power began to suppress her own soul power. Before long, she clearly felt that a large portion of her own soul power was no longer usable. Immediately following this was a feeling of immense relief from her body. It was like carrying hundreds of pounds of weight every day and finally having it removed. She moved her arm, feeling a lightness she had never experienced before. For a moment, Yakumo felt like crying, tears welling up in her eyes. Cough, 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 why are you crying? Rinso spoke weakly, his eyes dull. Yakumo looked over, instantly alarmed. What's wrong? You're so weak. Rinso gave a weak smile. Your soul power is too strong. Sealing it consumes a lot from me. But I'll be fine after some rest, just a little rest. With that, he tilted his head, closed his eyes, and fainted. Yakumo wiped her tears and held Rinso in her arms. Only now did she finally realize that Rinso hadn't been lying. He really had been working hard for her. She looked down at the weak Rinso and whispered, I forgive you. She propped Rinso's body upright against a nearby tree, then sat beside him, letting his head rest against hers, and her head rested on Rinso's shoulder. Unconsciously, they both fell asleep. When they opened their eyes again, dusk was falling, and the moon was casting its light, replacing the sun. The soul power consumed by sealing Yakumo's soul still left Rinso feeling somewhat dizzy. And this was even with Yakumo not resisting at all from beginning to end. It was evident just how formidable Yakumo's inherent soul power was, even surpassing his own mental power, which had been amplified after awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan. It was no exaggeration to say it was terrifying. Yakumo, wake up. Rinso gently nudged the girl's shoulder. Slowly, the girl opened her eyes and immediately saw Rinso beside her, a happy smile naturally gracing her lips. Rinso-kun. Yakumo's voice, having just woken up, was somewhat soft and sweet as she called Rinso's name, making his body tingle. For some reason, Rinso felt that Yakumo's attitude towards him had become more intimate. It's getting late. It's time to go home, Rinso said. MHM. Yakumo nodded with a smile, looking very content from her sleep. I'll be going now. Yakumo waved her hand casually and left. Rinso, however, still felt that Yakumo's attitude towards him was a bit off. Without thinking much, after watching Yakumo leave, Rinso rubbed his temples. I finally delivered on the big promise. Even if there's no benefit, at least I feel better mentally. He muttered to himself. Then Rinso also prepared to leave. But just before he left, a bright light on the ground caught his attention. As his gaze shifted, he looked over. A prompt popped up. Kurama Yakumo dropped. Soul talent, pick up Y/and pick up. Rinso said, subconsciously. When he realized what he was picking up, his eyes widened instantly. Soul talent? That soul power that without any training, external force, or bloodline limit enhancement was still more immense than his own, even after being amplified by the Mangekyo Sharingan. Such a terrifying soul talent just dropped? In an instant, Rinso felt that all his efforts had been worth it. Chapter 84, Teasing Kakuzu, Obito's Sneak Attack. Hidden Rain Village. It is named this because it rains all year round. Walking on the muddy ground, the rainwater splashed towards Rinso, but he used chakra to keep it from touching his body. Having read the original work, he naturally understood that these raindrops had long become pain, or rather, Nagato's aid in monitoring the entire Hidden Rain Village. Rain Tiger technique. Nagato infused chakra into the rainwater, making every drop of rain his eye, monitoring every corner of Hidden Rain Village in real time. This shows how terrifying Nagato's chakra reserves were. Thinking about it, Kakashi, with a normal Jonin-level chakra reserve, was exhausted just maintaining one Mangekyo Sharingan. Nagato, on the other hand, maintained his Rinnegan in both eyes all year round, consuming an astronomical amount of chakra. As expected of someone with both Uzumaki Bloodline and Senju Bloodline, his chakra reserves are terrifying. No wonder he could use the Rinnegan to revive almost the entire Konoha village in the original work. Rinso muttered to himself, even though there was no one around, and he made no sound. After all, he was definitely under Nagato's surveillance right now. Kakuzu was clearly just bait to lure him out. But it didn't matter. Jiang Taigong fishes, and those who wish to be caught take the bait. He was now the fish willingly taking the bait. He just wanted to see what reaction Nagato and Obito would have when the fish they painstakingly caught turned out to be fake, a shadow clone. Why did he suddenly tell me to come out? The guy's really strange. Kakuzu walked aimlessly along the edge of Hidden Rain Village's inland lake. He found it very strange why Pain, who called himself a god, would suddenly order him to walk around outside. Could it be to attract someone or something? Kakuzu thought about it and felt it was unlikely. After all, he was a Kaga-level expert, and even among Kaga-level experts, he was top tier. Even the Kage of the 5 great villages shouldn't want to easily offend him. Of course, he generally wouldn't provoke the 5 great villages either. Robbing Konoha's merchant convoy was purely Pain's order, which puzzled him. Aside from Pain, this self-proclaimed god, Kakuzu didn't think anyone else would be powerful enough to make him feel so helpless, nor would anyone target him. Therefore, he immediately ruled out the possibility of himself being used as bait. How puzzling. With his strength, Kakuzu stopped thinking about it and prepared to return to Pain after a little more wandering. However, before he could walk much further, a figure appeared a few meters away from him. As soon as the figure appeared, without a word, it unleashed a burst of chakra that made Kakuzu's pupils constrict. His expression grew serious. "So, I really was meant to be bait?" He asked Rinso, "Who are you? Why are you looking for me?" The adult Rinso adjusted his mask, not intending to answer his questions. Drawing the long sword from his waist, Rinso rushed towards Kakuzu without a word. A ridiculous attack. Kakuzu's disdainful voice rang out. Facing Rinso's straightforward sword thrust, he easily dodged it with a jump to the side. However, it was only then that Kakuzu suddenly noticed. At his feet, a kunai had appeared. His instinctive sixth sense told him something was wrong, and he immediately wanted to escape. Without any hesitation, he immediately jumped to the side again. The sword struck. It pierced Kakuzu straight through. Kakuzu's eyes widened in disbelief. Rinso had predicted his movement trajectory. He used the Flying Thunder God kunai to seal off a position, forcing Kakuzu to move. And he, through prediction, had already aimed his sword at Kakuzu's landing spot. This created a scene where Rinso thrust his sword at an empty space, and Kakuzu actively ran into it. Thud! Kakuzu fell straight to the ground, his blood spreading rapidly with the help of the rain, quickly staining the entire area red. Rinso pretended not to know about Kakuzu's immortality, muttering softly, "I thought he might have some strength, but he's so weak." With that, he turned to leave, seemingly defenseless. Good opportunity. Kakuzu's heart rejoiced. The moment Rinso turned, he immediately stood up, his large hands reaching for Rinso's heart. However, just an instant before his hand touched Rinso's figure suddenly vanished. Another sword thrust, piercing his heart for the second time. Kakuzu looked back and saw Rinso had reappeared behind him, the Flying Thunder God mark on the ground silent and almost imperceptible. Rinso really wanted to tell Kakuzu that Flying Thunder God didn't require a kunai to teleport, but he didn't say anything. Facing Kakuzu's astonished expression, Rinso retreated a few steps and quickly formed hand signs. Jinjutsu, darkness technique. The Jinjutsu hit. As soon as Kakuzu replaced his heart, the world before his eyes immediately became pitch black. He couldn't see anything. He wanted to dispel the Jinjutsu. But darkness technique, as an A-rank Jinjutsu, a powerful Jinjutsu that even the third Hokage couldn't directly dispel in the original work, wasn't that easy to break. In the darkness, Kakuzu immediately released 2 heart monsters, letting them begin indiscriminate firing in all directions. Flames and hurricanes continuously spewed from the mouths of the heart monsters, making it impossible for anyone to approach. Rinso formed hand signs, summoning a wood golem wall to block in front of him, preventing Kakuzu from accidentally hitting him with a lucky shot. Then, he waited quietly, waiting for Kakuzu's chakra to run out. As for dispelling the Jinjutsu, just Kakuzu, with his current spiritual power, ocular power, and the level of ninjutsu he could perform, let alone Kakuzu, even Uchiha Obito and Shursui couldn't easily break it. And this wasn't even his limit. Don't forget, he had already acquired Yakumo's soul talent. This soul talent didn't directly give him the same soul power as Yakumo, but rather soul growth potential. Yakumo's immense spiritual power wasn't something she had from the start, but something she gradually developed as she grew up. It's like Senju Hashirama. When he was born, the difference between him and other ordinary children might have been very small. But as he slowly grew up, every year Hashirama grew, the amount of chakra and physical strength he gained far surpassed his peers. After more than a decade, the accumulated advantages each year became the key to creating a significant gap. And Yakumo's soul talent brought powerful growth potential. Rinso felt that perhaps soul power might even become his primary method in the future. Getting back to the main topic. While Rinso was reminiscing, Kakuzu had already stopped using ninjutsu due to excessive chakra consumption and began to flee frantically in one direction. Seeing this, Rinso calmly followed, gripping his longsword tightly, seemingly focused on dealing with Kakuzu. In reality, his attention was no longer on Kakuzu. A stray dog is nothing to fear. He was now wary of Pain and Obito, who could appear at any moment. Whoosh! The sound of rushing air came. Rinso, who had long been prepared, immediately sensed the sneak attack from behind and instantly activated Flying Thunder God. His figure vanished and then reappeared. He looked at where he had originally been, and Obito was still in his attacking stance. Chapter 85, Experiencing the Allure of an Explosion. Shadow, Clone Progress. Obito slowly retracted his hand, maintaining his composure. "You're reacting faster," Obito praised. "You're too slow," Rinso calmly replied. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in Obito's eyes as he sneered. "Last time you had backup, and I didn't want to waste time with you. Today, you'll die here." Rinso glanced at him indifferently, disdainfully saying, "A defeated cur doesn't deserve to bark. Get lost." With that, he no longer paid any attention to Obito, instead fixating on Kakuzu, who was running away. Crunch! Obito gritted his teeth, his nose twitching slightly as he suppressed his anger. How dare such a mere brat mock him? Obito took a deep breath, still managing to suppress his rage. Those who achieve great things must endure what others cannot. To eliminate Rinso, this major threat, he couldn't let anger affect him. Fire release. Great fireball technique. A scorching fireball spewed from his mouth as Obito launched the first attack. Rinso glanced at it, rapidly forming hand seals. The moment Obito saw Rinso's hand seals, he immediately phased his body, charging forward, throwing kunai. His hand seals were forcibly interrupted, and Rinso instantly entered body activation state, his physical abilities greatly enhanced, barely able to keep up with the dynamic vision. Then, he deflected the kunai with his long sword, while his other hand condensed chakra. Chakra scalpel. Whoosh! With a tearing sound, a powerful blow landed squarely. A solid hit, it connected. Rinso felt no joy, instead frowning. It connected so easily. Something was wrong. Sure enough, the next second, the Obito he had hit in front of him immediately dissipated. It was a shadow clone. At the same time, a chilling sensation came from behind him, so fast that his reaction speed registered it, but his body was completely unable to react. A cold object was stealthily plunged into his back. Simultaneously, the chakra within his body experienced a noticeable blockage and confusion, further delaying Rinso from using the Flying Thunder God technique. And then, 1, 2, 3, cold objects were brutally inserted into Rinso's body. His internal chakra almost completely ceased, no ninjutsu could be performed, and his body slumped limply to the ground. Rinso's peripheral vision caught sight of a figure appearing in the distance. Orange hair, an icy, emotionless face, and black decorations on his face whose purpose was unclear. Devapath. Rinso recognized him immediately and instantly knew what had been inserted into him. Chakra black rods, products of the Rinnegan, formidable weapons. They can not only disrupt others' internal chakra, but also restrict movement and were incredibly hard. Pain. Finish him. Obito commanded, a hint of barely perceptible joy in his tone. He was impersonating Uchiha Madara, and shouldn't have shown joy at eliminating a child like Rinso. But having resorted to a sneak attack against Rinso earlier, he had already somewhat broken character. Now, he didn't care. Let Nagato be suspicious if he wanted. They were merely using each other, and as long as it didn't affect the plan, it was enough. On the contrary, Rinso was an unexpected variable, and if he wasn't dealt with now, Obito would never feel at ease. Devapath glanced at Obito, not refuting, and raised his hand, intending to use Shinra Tensei to crush Rinso into a pulp. To this, Rinso merely smiled. "I thought you'd have some better tricks up your sleeve to trap me, but it's just chakra black rods." Obito snorted. "You don't think by delaying your death like this, you'll have a chance to escape, do you? Pain, don't give him any more time, do it." Rinso didn't answer, still smiling. "Delaying time? Yes, I am delaying time." Then, experience the charm of an explosion. As Rinso's words fell, he suddenly dispersed, and after his body vanished, only a small clay spider was left in his place. Obito and Pain paid no mind to these strange things, focusing only on Rinso's sudden disappearance. Shadow clone. Obito almost squeezed these 3 words out his throat. Pain's emotionless voice followed, questioning, why was it a shadow clone? Obito, consumed by anger, roared, "How should I know? When I fought him, although he had many techniques, his strength was limited. He was just able to easily suppress Kakuzu, so was I wrong to think he was the original? It's not my fault. It's that this brat's growth rate is too astonishing." Obito said viciously, "He must be dealt with as soon as possible. No more delays." Devapath watched silently, then suddenly said, "A mere child has made you too nervous. Leave it to me. God is invincible." Obito didn't respond. God? Just a pitiful wretch whose eyes weren't even his own. During their conversation, the clay spiders Rinso had left behind slowly merged together. Before Obito and Pain could react, they suddenly emitted a dangerous aura. An instinctive sixth sense made Obito's heart clench, and he immediately activated his phasing ability. Boom! A massive explosion, echoing throughout the hidden cloud village, engulfed both Obito and Devapath. When the flames dissipated, the aftermath of the explosion became clear to Obito. An area covering 1,000 meters had all sunk 2 to 3 meters. The power was terrifying. Looking to the side, Devapath, who had just been speaking so arrogantly, had his clothes blown to shreds and various parts of his body bore wounds of varying depths. He was almost completely incapacitated, a stark contrast to his confident demeanor just moments before. Idiot, Obito couldn't help but spit. Konoha Village. Rinso received all the memories from the Shadow Clone, and after carefully reviewing them, his expression became somewhat serious. Chakra black rods, tricky things. Once you're ambushed and they're inserted, you can't use ninjutsu. It really could lead to a disastrous defeat. It seems I need to be careful in the future. Rinso felt fortunate for his caution. It's a good thing I had a Shadow Clone test these things out. Otherwise, after so many years with my memory being blurry, I really might not have thought of chakra black rods immediately, and I could have been caught off guard. After this incident, Rinso became even more cautious. After so many years of transmigration, his memories were already hazy. What if he hadn't remembered something clearly, and something unexpected suddenly appeared that could catch him off guard? He was still not strong enough. He still needed to train. Thinking this, Rinso browsed through more memories. These were from his other 2 Shadow Clones. The 2 Shadow Clones he had sent to Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Mist Village respectively. Around the same time, they both sent back memories and brought good results. That is, both Shadow Clones had successfully infiltrated Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Sand Village, mimicking the methods used to infiltrate Hidden Cloud Village and Awagakure. However, unlike the previous 2 ninja villages, he was not discovered by important figures when infiltrating Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Sand Village, so he had not immediately displayed his talent or received immediate training. But Rinso wasn't in a hurry. Now that he had successfully infiltrated 4 ninja villages, all he needed to do was buy time. Chapter 86. More than a year later, about to enter the Ninja Academy. After teaching Kakuzu a lesson, he also discovered that Pain and Obito's method of dealing with him was the chakra black rod. Rinso had one less thing to worry about. In the following days, he attended Hinata's birthday party, which went smoothly without any hitches. Afterward, he focused on improving himself. He continuously refined the spiritualization technique, allowing his ever-growing soul power to be effectively controlled. He researched Nintai Jutsu daily, and even without the lightning release chakra mode as a reference, he still made significant progress. The most obvious progress was in temporarily strengthening his physical attributes. It was similar to the 8 inner gates formation, allowing him to temporarily remove physical limitations. Besides this, he also made considerable advancements in ninjutsu. After the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Tsurutobi, finally had some free time, Rinso learned the techniques of combination ninjutsu from him, gaining a more precise judgment of when to release ninjutsu, and also learning the powerful 5 elements Great Bullet technique. Furthermore, in Awagakure, under the guidance of the 3rd Tsuchikage, Inoki, Rinso finally pretended to have just learned the chakra nature transformation and shape transformation, successfully graduating. He was also taught several earth release ninjutsu and dust release. Among the earth release ninjutsu, the added weight rock technique and the lightweight rock technique were quite beneficial to him due to their functionality. In terms of dust release, he could already fully fuse the 3 nature chakra, though there were still some issues with the proportions. One could only say that, as expected of a Kekkei Toda, the learning difficulty was terrifying. He even managed to pick up and master Inoki's dust release ninjutsu, dust release, detachment of the primitive world, through long-term study, even though he hadn't even truly mastered dust release itself. Beyond ninjutsu, in terms of taijutsu, jinjutsu, sealing technique, and medical ninjutsu, taijutsu and jinjutsu were almost at their peak. His taijutsu was entirely derived from Might Guy. He had mastered all taijutsu moves through learning and picking up, even more than Lee, Might Guy's disciple. For jinjutsu, with his Mangekyo Sharingan, Kurenai Yui's jinjutsu talent, and Yakumo's jinjutsu talent combined with soul talent, no one could teach him jinjutsu anymore. In sealing technique, the 5-element seal was a given, and he had also learned the 4-symbol seal. Later, he learned the equally A-rank difficulty 5 elements unseal and the B-rank difficulty barrier sealing technique for violet flames formation, making remarkable progress. For medical ninjutsu, with the assimilation self-healing technique, he no longer studied new medical ninjutsu. His shadow clone at Konoha Hospital focused more on understanding human anatomy, even participating in dissections, gaining a deeper understanding of the human body structure. While his medical ninjutsu hadn't progressed much, it didn't mean his shadow clone at Konoha Hospital was ineffective. With his shadow clone stationed at Konoha Hospital, almost no patient in the entire Konoha died from injuries. This earned him an excellent reputation. When his main body trained in the training ground, ninja or passers-by would often greet him warmly, their attitudes incredibly good. Medical ninja are indeed popular. Life was getting better and better, and his strength was growing stronger and stronger. Rinso wasn't without his troubles. For example, Ino's parents, Tenten's parents, and Hinata's parents. These elders often invited him to their homes for meals to foster their relationship, still treating him like their own son. Especially Hinata's parents, Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Harurin, who were no longer strangers. After Hanabi's birth, he was the fourth person to see her, showing their close relationship. Of course, there was nothing wrong with this, except that their invitations occasionally coincided, making it difficult for him to choose. To avoid disappointing anyone, he even had to create shadow clones, which was both amusing and frustrating. Also, during daily training, the subtle competition among the four girls occasionally made him feel pressured. For example, Onma Yakumo, ever since her soul power was sealed and her body was liberated, was no longer listless. Suddenly, she became the most aggressive among the four girls. She always wanted him all to herself. As soon as he paid a little attention to Ino, Hinata, or Tenten, Yakumo would immediately let out an ouch, either spraining her ankle, bumping her head, or dislocating her shoulder. At first, he didn't notice that Yakumo was doing this on purpose, but after it happened too many times, he caught on. However, whenever Rinso asked Yakumo why she kept getting hurt, she would tear up and change the subject, asking if he disliked her for being a burden, making it impossible for him to press further. Finally, one more thing that bothered Rinso was that Karen always ignored him. For instance, even though they lived on the outskirts of the village and their homes weren't far apart, she would always leave early for the training ground just to avoid him. At the training ground, she would always avoid him. No, it should be avoiding all males. Sunny Naruto, Tsundere Sasuke, Steady Niji, enthusiastically, wise Shikumu, Big Eater Choji, all were kept at a distance. She treated Kakashi, Shursui, and Might Guy the same, only seeking Kurenai Yuhi for help when she had difficulties. Rinso strongly suspected that her experiences in the hidden grass village might have caused her to develop a physiological aversion to men. After realizing this, he stopped actively approaching Karen. Thus, he was never able to pick up anything from Karen. Instead, from Karen's mother, Uzumaki Koyo, through occasional contact over time, he successfully picked up one item. Uzumaki Koyo dropped. Physical healing. Pick up? After integrating it, his healing methods became more diverse, and, compared to the assimilation's self-healing technique, physical healing consumed less chakra for equivalent injuries. However, to avoid exposing his Uzumaki bloodline, he never revealed this ability to others. Overall, everything was still developing steadily. A year and more passed in a flash. Everyone in the small group, led by Rinso, had reached the age of 6. Among them, Tenten, Niji, and Lee had all turned 7 and had already been in the Ninja Academy for a year. Due to their early training, the 3 were currently at the top of their grade, and even Lee, with his formidable taijutsu, had not fallen to the point of being ridiculed by others. In terms of actual combat, Niji might not even be his match. In the early morning, Rinso finished the breakfast prepared by his mother, Mariki Hanako, and after saying goodbye, left home. Mom, Dad, I'm leaving. Leaving his home, Rinso, dressed in comfortable casual clothes, slowly walked in one direction. This direction was not towards the Konoha training ground, but Rinso had not taken a wrong turn. Because today, he had no intention of going to the Konoha training ground. He was going to the Konoha Ninja Academy. At 6 years old, it was time for him to attend the Ninja Academy. Today was the day of his entrance exam. Although with his strength, such a test was meaningless, the procedures still had to be followed. After all, who could refuse a chance to show off in front of others at such a time? Chapter 87. Lin Shum, with ease. It's Rinso the medical ninja, right? Good morning. Good morning, Rinso the medical ninja. Please take some of my family's steamed buns. They're fresh out of the pot. Don't refuse. My husband broke his leg, and you saved him, without asking for a single coin. If you accept these buns, I'll feel more at ease. Rinso the medical ninja. Have you had breakfast yet? Come have a bowl of my family's donburi. Last time my child was bitten by a snake and almost died, thanks to your treatment. Rinso the medical ninja is getting more handsome by the day. If I had a granddaughter, I'd definitely make her marry you. Walking on the streets of Konoha, Rinso was occasionally recognized and greeted warmly. He didn't put on airs and responded to each one. Good morning. Buns? Then thank you, Auntie. Donburi? All right. Thank you, Uncle. Grandpa, I wish you good health. Rinso touched his face, which had matured a bit, and didn't know what to say. In over a year, with his growth rate, he had grown quite a bit more. At 6 years old, he was already about the same size as a normal 10-year-old, and his face had matured considerably, making him quite handsome. Because of this, many adults would jokingly, yet genuinely, try to arrange marriages for their daughters or granddaughters. He was handsome, had great potential, and was a famous medical ninja in Konoha. It was only because of his young age that those adults still held back. Otherwise, Rinso shook his head, not daring to think about it further. After walking a bit more, the food he was carrying and the items given by merchants increased. He finally reached his destination when all 10 of his fingers had no more space. Konoha Ninja Academy. Most of Konoha's ninja graduated from here, and it was a place all children who wanted to become ninja yearned to attend. As it was the first day of the entrance exam, the Ninja Academy gathered many children of Rinso's age today. Roughly speaking, there were definitely several hundred. Among these hundreds of children, a clear space was left where several children of the same age stood. The other children seemed afraid to interact with those in the clear space and observe from the sidelines. From a distance, Rinso saw Naruto and his friends gathered together, forming a small group. Rinso didn't go over, just watched quietly. But sometimes it's just like that. He didn't want to attract attention, staying quietly in a corner, but attention would actively seek him out. At the same age, Rinso was more than a head taller than his peers and handsome, immediately attracting others' attention the moment he arrived. Many girls couldn't take their eyes off him. Wow, what a handsome brother. Is he a senior from the Ninja Academy? Will I meet such a handsome classmate when I attend the Ninja Academy? Clearly, due to his rapid growth, Rinso was mistaken for a senior student. He didn't bother to explain, and, carrying many delicacies, he gestured to the silent Choji in the small group, his meaning unmistakable. Seeing this, Choji's eyes lit up, and he rushed over. Rinso, are these for me? Choji asked expectantly. Rinso nodded and handed over all the food he was carrying. He accepted all this food, not only because he didn't want to let the goodwill of those people go to waste, but also because he wasn't afraid of waste. With Choji around, any amount of food could be cleaned up. Thank you, thank you. Choji quickly thanked him, then began to wolf down the food, so satisfied that he was almost in tears. At the same time, with Choji's actions, Naruto and the others also noticed Rinso. With almost no hesitation, everyone gathered around, surrounding Rinso as their central figure. Big brother Rinso, you're here. You'll definitely get first place in today's entrance test, and I'll get second. Naruto said happily, full of confidence. Sasuke turned his head away disdainfully. Second? What a dream. Second place will only be mine. Damn you, Sasuke. I'll definitely get a better score than you. Naruto's face was full of defiance. Beside them, Sakura sighed helplessly. Honestly, they always argue every time they meet. Maybe they're just naturally incompatible. Ino casually agreed. Then her attention focused entirely on Rinso. Rinso, are you confident about today's test? Ino made small talk, looking at Rinso, who was more than a head taller than her and had matured a bit. Already infatuated, she was now finding it hard to control herself. Confidence? I'll easily get first place, Rinso said casually. Rinso-kun, do your best today, Hinata said, blushing, her eyes shining. She stared at Rinso's neck, remembering the scarf. She recalled that several months ago, when it was still winter, she had knitted a second scarf for Rinso. Now that winter had passed, she wanted to get that scarf back. After all, the scent of the scarf she had kept from over a year ago had faded significantly. Here, Hinata, you must eat it all, no wasting. Rinso extended his other hand, which was also full of food, steamed buns, pancakes, noodle soup, everything imaginable. Hinata's eyes instantly lit up, but she was also a bit shy and didn't dare to take it. Eating all this food, wouldn't that be a bit much? Hinata thought, poking her fingers. Hinata, don't disappoint my intentions. With Rinso's words, Hinata immediately cast aside her worries, quickly took the food, and thanked him softly. Thank you, Rinso-kun. Rinso reached out and stroked Hinata's soft head. Hinata only blushed and didn't faint. After such a long period of desensitization, the effect was good. After stroking her head, Rinso quickly looked at Yakumo. Sure enough, Yakumo had already lowered her head, looking for pebbles, seemingly wondering how to make her sprained ankle appear natural. Rinso quickly took her hand, leaned close to her ear, and whispered, "Be careful not to get hurt today. The entrance test results will affect class assignments. Yakumo, you must work hard. If we're in the same class, we might even be desk mates." In an instant, Yakumo abandoned her idea of spraining her ankle to attract attention. Same class, same desk. Wouldn't that mean spending most of the day together? Yakumo smiled slightly, her expression gentle, with the air of a noble lady from an ancient family. I will be more careful, Rinso-kun. Rinso felt a moment of disorientation, thinking that if he didn't know Yakumo was inherently a little twisted, a very possessive and persistent girl, he might actually be misled. It's worth mentioning that Yakumo was actually a year older than him and should have been in the same grade as Tintin and Lee. But for some reason, Onma Yakumo had her clan head father specifically request Hiruzen Tsurutobi for a 1-year deferral of her enrollment. So, she ended up in the same class as Rinso. Not far away, Karen watched Rinso effortlessly navigate between the three girls and couldn't help but shake her head. Handsome and talented, but unfortunately a playboy. If anyone liked him, there would be too many rivals, and they would probably be so worried they couldn't sleep at night. But it was fine, she already had someone in her heart, so she didn't have to worry about that. It's just, sigh, why doesn't Brother Wanderer come back to Konoha to see me? Karen pursed her lips, a little lost in thought. Shikamaru looked at everyone, each with their own thoughts, and with an expression that saw through everything, he said, "The entrance test has started. Everyone hurry and go in." Chapter 88 Entrance Test, Lin Shang's Kunai Throwing. The Ninja Academy entrance exam was not simple. At least, not for ordinary children. Firstly, being able to refine chakra at the age of 6 was enough to weed out many ordinary children. Secondly, the physical fitness test was also not something an average child could endure. Just as in the original work, Might Guy and Yakumo were both eliminated by these two conditions, respectively. However, it was clear that these two tests posed no difficulty for anyone in Rinso's group. Having trained together for so long, each of them had excellent physical conditioning, and refining chakra was not difficult for them. The mere entrance exam was truly just a formality. Nevertheless, even if they could easily pass the entrance exam, they would not let their guard down. Instead, they would go all out. Because, as Rinso said, those with good entrance exam results would be assigned to the same class. No one in Rinso's group wanted to be left behind. Soon, the entrance exam officially began. Everyone entered the Ninja Academy to take the tests. The chakra refinement and physical fitness tests need no further explanation. Under the supervision of Chunin, Rinso and the others quickly completed their tests. He wasn't even the fastest among them. This was only because he hadn't used his full strength from the start, merely maintaining the same speed as Yakumo, running slowly. No other reason, just doing it as it came. After all, passing the physical fitness test was enough. The true determinants of the entrance ranking were the later tests. Shuriken, Kunai, and even Ninjutsu release. These individual bonus points were the key to determining their ranks. And because of this, many people gathered to watch, including the third Hokage, Hiruzen Tsurutobi, and parents from various clans who came to observe. For example, Hyuga Hayashi and his wife, and the clan heads of the Ino, Shika, Cho trio, in the spacious training ground. Rinso stood behind the red line of the target, manipulating a kunai in his hand. At the same red line, Sasuke's expression was serious, full of fighting spirit. Naruto swallowed, a bit nervous. The three of them were in the same testing batch. Hiruzen Tsurutobi, who was observing, immediately spoke. "The first round is little Rinso, little Sasuke, and little Naruto. It seems it will be very exciting." Uchiha Fugaka nodded and smiled. Sasuke has been pestering Itachi every night to study for this entrance exam. Uchiha Fugaku said no more, but everyone could tell that he clearly believed Sasuke would win. In response, the parents who knew Rinso showed knowing smiles. "Fugaku, as long as you're happy," Hyuga Hayashi said. Sitting beside him, Hyuga Harurin smiled slightly. "I still have more faith in little Rinso." Saying this, she looked down at her second daughter, Hanabi, whom she held in her arms, and softly said, "Isn't that right, little Hanabi?" 1-year-old Hyuga Hanabi was still tiny, dressed in tightly wrapped children's clothing, like an ice cream cone, with her exposed skin snow white. She blinked her big eyes, looking at Rinso on the field, and babbled, "Rinso, big brother." Beside her, Hyuga Hayashi sounded a bit jealous. Hanabi says Rinso's name more clearly than she says Papa. Hyuga Harurin truly rolled her eyes at Hyuga Hayashi and said, "Whose fault is it that you can never make time to be with Hanabi? Little Rinso, on the other hand, comes every day to help me with my physical conditioning and spends a long time with Hanabi each time." Moreover, Hyuga Harurin stroked Hanabi's head and said, "Hanabi really likes little Rinso's chakra. She's very close to him. Maybe it's because she absorbed little Rinso's chakra so much before she was born." Perhaps Hyuga Hayashi had nothing to say and simply shut up. On the field at this moment, a Chunin referee stood on the sidelines, starting the countdown. "Throw together in 3 seconds, 3, 2, 1. The moment the referee's words fell, Rinso turned and left, walking over to Hinata, Ino, and Yakumo. "Rinso-kun?" Yakumo was full of confusion. Ino scratched her head, also not understanding why Rinso didn't throw immediately. Only Hinata, whose veins around her eyes were bulging at this moment, had seen something clearly with the aid of her Byakugan, her small mouth forming an O at the red line. Sasuke was focused on himself and did not notice Rinso's departure. His attention was concentrated, and the kunai in his hand flew out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 kunai were thrown. Bang, bang, bang. All 3 kunai hit, and all hit the red area of the bullseye, which represented the small area, for a perfect score. Of the 3 kunai, 2 hit the very center, with little difference in distance, but the third was a bit close, stuck at the edge of the red area, almost falling into the next zone. However, 3 kunai thrown at the same time, and all hitting the perfect score area, was already terrifying. This was a level most genin couldn't achieve. Having achieved such a score, Sasuke excitedly looked at his father, who was watching him, his eyes filled with joy. However, what greeted him was not his father's approving or affirming gaze, but a slight shake of his head, a rather helpless look. The excitement in his heart cooled slightly, and Sasuke quickly looked at Rinso's position and the bullseye, finding that there wasn't a single kunai on it. While confused, he felt even more delighted. Could it be that he had truly defeated Rinso? He looked at the Chunin referee as if seeking confirmation. The Chunin referee looked at Rinso's target, seemingly confirming something, unsure of the situation. Seeing this, Uchiha Fugaka sighed. Sasuke lost. He's going to be overshadowed by Rinso his whole life, facing him in this generation. For the proud Uchiha clan to utter such words, it showed what kind of crushing action Rinso had taken. Even the other clan heads and high-ranking officials who were observing nodded in agreement. This was because, with their strength, they could more or less see Rinso's movements. Sasuke, you lost, Uchiha Fugaka said. Why? Sasuke was very unconvinced. He threw 3 kunai at once, all hitting the bullseye for a perfect score. At most, it should be a tie, right? Fugaka shook his head and said, Sasuke, look at Rinso's target. Sasuke looked over. There was only one hole, his expression puzzled. Fugaku explained, is there only one hole? That's because all 3 of Rinso's kunai hit the very center, one after another, penetrating the bullseye. Sasuke's pupils contracted, and he looked behind Rinso's target. Sure enough, 3 kunai lay quietly on the ground. Fugaku continued, and he threw all 3 kunai immediately after the referee started, throwing them simultaneously, yet they hit one after another. This kind of control over force. Sasuke, you lost. Hearing this, Sasuke looked at Rinso again. At this moment, Rinso was surrounded by Ino and the others, smiling broadly, not even looking at him. His confidence plummeted. Sasuke's confidence was greatly shaken. However, when he saw Naruto carefully aiming, slowly throwing kunai, one by one, only managing to hit one, and that one in the outermost 1-point area, suddenly, Sasuke couldn't help but let the corners of his mouth curl up slightly. It didn't feel so bad anymore. Chapter 89 Sasuke awakens his Sharingan and goes to see Meiterumi. The kunai throwing test quickly ended. In Rinso's small group, Uzumaki Naruto was at the bottom. He was truly terrible with ninja tools, a genuine idiot. Even Yakumo, who had trained for a shorter period, threw more accurately than Naruto, achieving excellent scores of 1-9 and 2-8. With these scores, getting into the best class was no longer an issue. So, after some thought, Yakumo decided to skip the remaining tests. This included the Taijutsu spar, which was a better indicator of strength. It was an additional test. Those who wished to participate could further demonstrate their abilities, and if they performed well in the physical tests, they could still get into a good class, even if their previous scores were poor. However, almost everyone in Rinso's small group, who were already confirmed to be able to enter a good class, chose to continue participating. Only Naruto, whose throwing scores were unsatisfactory, chose to continue participating, feeling unsure. And the result? It was obvious. After such a long period of training, Naruto, who already had exceptional taijutsu talent, was now among the top 5 in taijutsu within the small group. Facing other children his age, he completely crushed them, achieving the top score. Thus, after the judges' consideration, the final results were announced. First place in the entrance exam, Mariki Lin Shung. Second place in the entrance exam, Uzumaki Naruto. Third place in the entrance exam, Uchiha Sasuke. Upon learning the ranking, Sasuke felt his heart stop, his mind filled with, I lost to Naruto. Sasuke covered his eyes in disbelief. He actually lost to someone he had always looked down upon and considered an idiot. And it wasn't even a face-to-face defeat. He lost simply because he didn't participate in the Taijutsu spar test. Sasuke took deep breaths, trying to alleviate the discomfort in his heart. Sakura watched from the side, heartbroken, and just as she was about to comfort him, Naruto spoke with a smug look. Sasuke, I won. I'm second place. If you want to challenge Big Brother Rinso in the future, beat me first, ha ha ha. Having beaten Sasuke, Naruto had never felt so refreshed. His catchphrase, Databayo, was shouted out, and his laughter echoed throughout the entire venue. Sasuke's face gradually turned red, and as Naruto continued to show off, he roared, "Shut up!" Ah! Naruto took a step back, pointing at Sasuke's eyes in shock. So red. Sharingan. Uchiha Fugaku stood up abruptly, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes also showed a hint of surprise. Activating the Sharingan at 6 years old. Is he another genius? From Shursui to Itachi and now Sasuke, 3 geniuses, all from the Uchiha. In the past, he would have definitely felt a strong sense of apprehension towards the Uchiha. But now, Sasuke, don't get too excited. Rinso gently raised his hand and, using the height difference, patted Sasuke's head. Urusai. Sasuke moved his head away, not letting Rinso continue to pat him, his tone impolite. But his body was honest. He forcefully closed his eyes once and deactivated the Sharingan. He was completely subdued by Rinso. Uchiha Fugaku was somewhat silent upon seeing this. His Thunder Son was probably no different in front of him. The small interlude quickly passed. After the entrance exam, class assignments followed immediately. It's worth mentioning that although Rinso had always implied that those with good grades would be in the same class, in reality, the Ninja Academy had no such policy. Therefore, Yakumo and the others were still quite worried that they might not be in the same class as Rinso. Fortunately, the results were not beyond Rinso's expectations. The entire small group was placed in one class. In addition, the last 2 of the Konoha 12, Shino Aburame and Inazuka Kiba, were also in their class. To be honest, Rinso still felt a bit regretful that he couldn't recruit these 2 into his small group before they joined the Ninja Academy. He inexplicably felt as if his collection was incomplete. But it couldn't be helped. Shino was inherently taciturn, and in the original work, he only played with Torian Aburame, a member of his clan, when he was young, so Rinso couldn't even approach him. And Inazuka Kiba was much the same. His childhood was the time to bond with his ninja dog, so why would he go out? Never mind, there's still plenty of time. Let's take it slow. Rinso was not in a hurry. Now that he possessed considerable strength, he was no longer so eager about everything. The next few years of the Ninja Academy might be the most peaceful time, so he should enjoy it well. Hidden Mist Village. Ninja Academy. A shadow clone of Rinso sat in the classroom, listening to the teacher on the podium explain essential ninja knowledge. After explaining the knowledge, the teacher looked around and then at Rinso in the first row, saying, "Kiri, repeat the knowledge I just taught." Rinso stood up and repeated it accurately and flawlessly. Very good. You may sit down," the Ninja Academy teacher said with a satisfied expression, nodding in approval at Rinso. This genius, who got first place in all tests during the entrance exam, was simply his lucky star. Anytime he didn't know who to ask to answer or repeat a point of knowledge, asking Rinso always worked. It was simply too comforting. He truly is a genius, the Ninja Academy teacher thought. Soon the class ended. The students in the class immediately became restless. Some went to the playground to play, while others chatted with newly made friends in the classroom. Only Rinso remained seated, patiently studying ninja knowledge. What a weirdo. Yeah, he's such an annoying guy. With him studying there, I feel too embarrassed to go out and play. By the way, has anyone seen his birthmark up close? I have. There's a huge patch on his face. It's especially ugly. The whispers entered Rinso's ears, making him quite speechless. He recalled the past. When he infiltrated the Hidden Mist Village, Yagura had already been freed from control, and the Hidden Mist Village's bloody policies had not lasted long. He didn't even need to think. It must have been caused by his butterfly effect. It could be said that if it weren't for him, these children his age would most likely have been victims of the Bloody Mist Village. Rinso now inexplicably felt an inappropriate sense of being repaid with ingratitude. "Kiri," a voice suddenly rang out. Rinso looked up. He saw a figure standing before him. He didn't know when they had arrived. It was an ANBU ninja from the Hidden Mist Village wearing a mask. Realizing that this person was calling him, Rinso nodded and responded, "I am Kiri. Is there something you need me for?" Confirming he had the right person, the ANBU ninja calmly said, "Come with me. Jona Meitarumi is looking for you." Meitarumi? In Rinso's mind, the alluring and sexy older woman from the original work naturally appeared. Now, she must have already reached near Kaga level, or even full Kaga level strength, right? This made her a prominent figure in the Hidden Mist Village. Why would she be looking for a child who had just enrolled in the Ninja Academy? Without thinking too much, and with his own strength as support, Rinso chose to go along. Chapter 90, My True Identity is Exposed. Meitarumi, I need your help with my cultivation. Led by an ANBU ninja, Rinso left the Ninja Academy and was taken to the outer fringes of the Hidden Mist Village, a place intentionally far from crowds. It wasn't until he crossed the water by boat and arrived at a small island that Rinso finally saw his target. Mei Terumi, barely in her early 20s, was in the prime of her youth and beauty, with fully developed features and a voluptuous figure, exuding charm from head to toe. Notably, she wasn't wearing combat attire, but rather a shoulder-bearing, slit-long dress similar to her Mizukage period in the original work, paired with black shorts, lace stockings, and pure white tall boots, full of allure. Rinso had seen attractive mature women before, such as Kurenai Yuhi from Konoha. But Kurenai Yuhi and Asuma clearly had feelings for each other, so he never looked too closely. Mei Terumi, however, was different. In the original work, she remained single until she became an older, leftover woman, clearly without a man. In that case, wouldn't it be harmless for him to take a few extra glances? Thus, Rinso, leveraging his age, looked at Mei Terumi with innocent eyes. Mei Terumi's mouth twitched at this, and she waved her hand at the ENBU ninja who had brought Rinso. The ENBU ninja nodded, not daring to disobey. After all, although Mei Terumi was currently only a jonin, she possessed 2 bloodline limits and had already stepped into that certain tier, holding an extremely high position in the Hidden Mist Village. Moreover, there were rumors that Mei Terumi was very likely to succeed as the 5th-generation Mizukage after another year or 2 of accumulation. After all, the 4th-generation Mizukage, Yagura, had been controlled before, and no one could guarantee he wouldn't be controlled again. Furthermore, even if he was controlled, the things he did still caused resentment, making it difficult to easily forgive him. Currently, it was only because Mei Terumi still needed to train and accumulate experience that Yagura hadn't already stepped down. In the eyes of most Hidden Mist Village ninja, Mei Terumi was even more significant than Yagura. Mei Terumi Jonin, do you need something from me? Rinso asked after the Yanbiyu ninja left. Mei Terumi nodded with an inexplicable look in her eyes, continuously scrutinizing Rinso without answering. Helpless, Rinso could only stand still, quietly waiting for Mei Terumi to finish her assessment. After Mei Terumi had observed Rinso for a long time, her gaze slowly shifted from uncertainty to conviction, and she finally spoke. Kiri? Or should I call you Mr. Ronin? Mei Terumi suddenly leaned close to Rinso, her voice alluring, making his ears tingle. Rinso shivered, immediately took a step back, and rubbed his ear, feeling a slight itch. As for the wanderer Mei Terumi mentioned, he feigned a look of confusion. Why? Is Mei Terumi Jonin saying, I am a wanderer? Mei Terumi's expression remained unchanged, looking as if to say, keep pretending. Mei Terumi Jonin? Rinso pretended to be innocently confused. Mei Terumi still didn't speak. Mei Terumi Jonin. Tisk, when did you find out? Unable to keep up the pretense, Rinso's eyes instantly lost their childlike innocence, and he looked at Mei Terumi with a helpless expression. Seeing Rinso admit it, a flicker of joy passed through Mei Terumi's eyes, and then she said, Mr. Ronin might not have memories, which is normal. I just don't know if Mr. Ronin still remembers. You once encountered our ninja from the Hidden Mist Village in the Land of Water. That time, I was masked and briefly exchanged a few moves with you, Mei Terumi said. Upon hearing this, Rinso searched his memories. Because his main body, Rinso, would synchronize memories periodically, he had the memories of his Ronin alter ego. After a brief scan, Rinso recalled this memory. At that time, his Ronin alter ego traveled to the Land of Water and coincidentally encountered a group of Hidden Mist Village ninja on a mission, so he became curious and secretly watched for a while. As a result, he was discovered by the leading ninja among them, exchanged a few moves, and then retreated. So, that ninja was Mei Terumi? However, his Ronin alter ego only exchanged a few moves with Mei Terumi. Was that enough to expose his alter ego? Rinso expressed his confusion. Seeing Rinso's confusion, Mei Terumi smiled and said, Actually, I was only suspicious. During the entrance exam, I went to observe, and the ninjutsu usage and taijutsu you displayed showed me a hint. Plus, Mr. Ronin, your face is very handsome and fits my aesthetic, so I remembered it more clearly. So, even though you used a birthmark to cover some features, if you ignore the birthmark and compare carefully, you can sense the similarity. Finally, just in case, I had someone bring you here. I just looked closely and am even more certain now. And Mr. Ronin, you just admitted it, didn't you? Mei Terumi squatted down to be at eye level with Rinso, propped up her chin, and licked her rosy lips. All right, you're good. Rinso had nothing to deny, but he felt a little regretful. He came to the Hidden Mist Village precisely to find high-value individuals and see if he could pick up good things. Or rather, his collection mentality had resurfaced. He simply wanted to infiltrate all 4 ninja villages. As a result, his Hidden Mist Village alter ego hadn't even done anything yet, but due to Mei Terumi's suspicion, it became the first of all his alter egos to be exposed. even if not completely. Because the identity of the Wanderer itself was also his alter ego. Mr. Ronin, can you tell me what your purpose is in coming to the Hidden Mist Village? Meitarumi asked. Purpose? His purpose was to come here to study honestly and incidentally get in touch with some high-value characters. Would she believe that? Rinso knew Meitarumi wouldn't believe it, so he casually made one up. I come from small ninja village, so I wanted to come to the Hidden Mist Village to supplement my ninja knowledge and secretly learn some water-release ninjutsu. Rinso's attitude was casual. With his strength, he wasn't flustered at all. Hearing Rinso's excuse, Meitarumi nodded. Her investigation revealed that Rinso indeed studied diligently every day and did nothing else, which was consistent with his excuse. Moreover, the Wanderer had always used swordsmanship in combat externally, rarely using ninjutsu. If he hadn't learned many, it would be understandable. However, for a Kaga-level expert to infiltrate the Hidden Mist Village just for such a reason, the persuasiveness was still too low. Rinso's true purpose was definitely not that simple. Meitarumi thought so. Alas, it seems I have to leave. This year and more of infiltration was all for nothing. With his identity exposed, Rinso simply spoke freely, as if no one else was present. Anyway, he was just a shadow clone. What was there to fear? Moreover, his alter ego's publicly displayed strength was Kaga level, so Meitarumi presumably wouldn't be so unhappy as to want to eliminate him. Unexpectedly, upon hearing Rinso's words, Meitarumi suddenly smiled alluringly. Wait, when did I say I was going to kick you out of the Hidden Mist Village? Then what do you mean? Rinso asked, puzzled. Meitarumi lightly bit her lip, lifted Rinso's chin, and said seductively, I need you to help me cultivate. The first thought that popped into Rinso's mind was, the old woman wants to prey on tender grass. Chapter 91, Meitarumi's Purpose. The girl who was evading the casino's pursuit. Help him cultivate. Rinso's mind was instantly filled with restricted scenes. Moreover, although Meitarumi thought that his Ronin alter ego in adult form was his true body, in reality, he was still just a fledgling. Though it seemed he wasn't small either. No, if it were really R-rated, how could he agree? What do you mean by that? Rinso pulled away, somewhat unable to tolerate Meitarumi's bold teasing. Meitarumi placed a finger to her lips, her eyes innocent. What do I mean? I mean exactly what I said. I've heard that Mr. Ronin's swordsmanship is top-notch in the ninja world, and I've been wanting to learn swordsmanship recently. As long as Mr. Ronin is willing to teach me swordsmanship, in exchange, I won't report your identity. Also, Mr. Ronin, aren't you interested in learning water-release ninjutsu? In a Hidden Mist Village, there's probably no one more skilled than me. Meitarumi stopped speaking, waiting for Rinso's reply. Rinso understood, and his eyes unconsciously showed a hint of disappointment, but he quickly recovered, considering it carefully. Teaching Meitarumi swordsmanship would allow Meitarumi to teach him water release, and his alter ego could continue to lie low. This didn't seem to hold much appeal for him. After all, he wasn't truly after water release. However, by teaching Meitarumi swordsmanship and having Meitarumi teach him water release, he would be able to spend a long time with such a high-value individual, slowly getting to know her, and later, whenever he had time, he could let his true body interact with her. Wouldn't things like lava release and boil release be within his grasp? Thinking this, Rinso nodded in agreement. All right. Meitarumi smiled, extending her fair, slender hand. Then, a pleasant transaction? Pleasant. Rinso extended his hand and shook hers. A little cool. With the transaction concluded, Meitarumi arranged for a ninja to escort Rinso off the island. It's worth noting that by choosing the island to bring Rinso and reveal her intentions, Meitarumi had likely prepared for a fight, not wanting to involve the villagers of Hidden Mist Village. The destruction caused by a Kaga-level experts battle would not be small. However, it was clear that these preparations were not needed. Watching the small boat leave the island, Meitarumi murmured to herself, although I don't know what your purpose is, you are a Kaga-level expert after all. If you could be recruited into the Hidden Mist Village. Indeed, recruiting Rinso into the Hidden Mist Village was Meitarumi's goal. There was no other way. Due to its policies, most of the Hidden Mist Village's ninja had fled, and the village was severely lacking in combat power. A Kaga-level expert, especially one without a clear allegiance to the 5 great ninja villages, meant Meitarumi would rather take some risks to recruit him. She was even willing to sacrifice herself to recruit Rinso. Recalling the upper half of the Wanderer's face, not covered by his mask, the bright eyes revealed, Meitarumi's cheeks flushed slightly. If necessary, a honey trap isn't out of the question. Hey. Unsure what she was thinking, Meitarumi let out a somewhat perverse laugh. Shop owner, 10 plates of pork and 10 plates of beef, please. Entering the barbecue restaurant, Rinso found a seat, preparing to eat a quick meal. Yes, please wait a moment, the shop owner said, immediately getting busy. While waiting for his food, Rinso wasn't in a hurry. He casually pulled out a book and slowly flipped through it. The book was titled Ronin's Travels. This book was written by him. He remembered back then, leaving Konoha to travel the ninja world for money and also to find some fun for himself. Rinso then created his own Ronin's Travels, based on the most common travelogue format in the ninja world. Don't let the ordinary name fool you. The content was explosive. Although this book was in the format of a travelogue, its content was entirely inspired by various online cool novels from his previous life. The first volume depicted being looked down upon by a girl from his village, being naturally unable to cultivate chakra, and thus only able to diligently practice swordsmanship, only to turn out to be a one-in-a-million sword prodigy. After that, it was the classic face-slapping plot. Directly copying the cool novels from his previous life, Rinso's Ronin's Travels sold out as soon as it was released, directly surpassing Ica Paradise to become the best-selling book. The one he held in his hand was the 5th volume, published by the bookstore but not yet released. He needed to read it, confirm there were no issues, and then it could be released. After reading for a while, the shop owner walked to Rinso's table with plates of sliced meat, placing them down one by one. His gaze inadvertently swept over the book in Rinso's hand, and he immediately looked surprised. Ronin's Travels? Do you also love this book, customer? The shop owner's tone was enthusiastic, as if he had found a kindred spirit. Rinso nodded, closing the book. Yes, I read every volume. It seems you're a loyal fan too. I've also read all 4 published volumes, and now I'm just waiting for the 5th. I really want to ask the author when he's going to update. I can't wait. The shop owner said expectantly. Rinso pulled down his mask, smiled, and said, I think it should be soon. The shop owner affirmed. Indeed, at the usual pace of 1 volume per quarter, the new volume shouldn't be too long now. Saying this, he turned and took a bottle of wine from a shelf in the store, placing it on Rinso's table. Since we like the same book, this bottle of wine is on me. Don't mind it. Rinso didn't like to drink, but he didn't refuse the shop owner's kindness, simply thanking him politely and planning to tip him extra when he paid the bill. Sizzle, sizzle. The fatty and lean barbecue meat on the griddle made sizzling sounds as oil splattered, whetting one's appetite. The barbecue slowly changed color, emitting an enticing aroma. Rinso dipped it in seasoning, put it in his mouth, and narrowed his eyes in satisfaction. Bang! A loud noise interrupted his enjoyment of the delicious food. Releasing chakra, Rinso unhappily sensed the source of the sound. In his colorless perception, Rinso clearly saw, on the street outside the barbecue restaurant, a girl who looked around 12 years old was running frantically, accompanied by a woman in her 20s, with several casino thugs in casino uniforms chasing them at full speed, knocking over some street vendors, and causing a commotion. To Rinso's surprise, he knew the 2 fleeing women. However, after thinking about it, he had no intention of helping. With their strength, if they truly wanted to escape, few people in the ninja world could catch them. Shaking his head slightly, Rinso decided not to bother. He withdrew his perception and continued eating his barbecue. Sizzle, sizzle. Slap. A figure burst into the barbecue restaurant, looking pitifully at Rinso. Big brother, let me hide. Saying this, without waiting for Rinso's answer, she directly dove under the table, using Rinso's body to completely conceal herself. Rinso looked speechless. Just as he was about to pull out the hidden girl, the barbecue restaurant door opened again. 2 casino thugs walked in, saying to each other, they ran this way. They must be in one of the nearby shops. Search carefully. Their commotion drew the shop owner out from the kitchen where he was preparing ingredients. Seeing the aggressive casino thugs, the shop owner was startled. Sirs, is there anything I can help you with? A girl who owes her casino gambling debts ran this way. Did you see her? A casino thug asked. The shop owner shook his head. No. Didn't see her? Then let us check. The casino thugs didn't believe him at all and started to thoroughly search the shop. With a clear conscience, the shop owner, who genuinely hadn't seen anyone enter, agreed to the casino thug's request. At his seat, Rinso looked down at the girl hiding between his legs, who was making a shushing gesture. Rinso's lips curved slightly, and he stood up directly. Are you looking for her? She suddenly burst in and hid here with me. Chapter 92, Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha. Watching the girl being led away by 2 casino thugs, Rinso sat back down and calmly ate his barbecue. Are you kidding me? It's only natural to pay your debts. Gamblers don't deserve pity. He ate barbecue for a while longer. The shop door was pushed open again. A woman in her early 20s scanned the barbecue restaurant, her expression gradually turning to confusion. Lady Tsunade, Shizen called out in the barbecue restaurant. Receiving no response, Shizen continued. Lady Tsunade, they've already left. You can come out now. Still getting no response. Shizen's expression gradually became serious. She clearly saw Lady Tsunade enter here to hide after parting ways with her. So why wasn't she coming out now? Could it be? Shizen looked at the only customer in the barbecue restaurant and went up to ask, "Did you see a girl about 12 years old come in?" Rinso was eating barbecue, the grease satisfying him immensely. Hearing Shizen's question, he pointed to the seat opposite him. "You can sit there for now. She should be back soon." "Oh, I see." Shizen breathed a sigh of relief, thinking Tsunade had gone to the restroom, and at the same time, she curiously sized up the man in front of her. His face had distinct angles, and his features were refined and sharp, especially his eyes, which were like the brightest stars in the night, making it impossible to look away. Shizen was certain that the man in front of her was the most handsome she had encountered since she and Tsunade began traveling the ninja world. Moreover, getting closer, Shizen saw the sword Rinso had placed by his feet, as well as the powerful, restrained aura emanating from him. Shizen made a judgment. The person in front of her was quite strong. "Want some?" Rinso pointed at the sizzling meat slices on the griddle, politely inviting her. Shizen swallowed, wanted to shake her head, but her body wouldn't obey. Traveling the ninja world with Tsunade, how many good things had she eaten? Any money they had, Tsunade would take to gamble. Barbecue. She hadn't eaten it in ages. She was so craving it. "Eat, it's fine." Rinso directly asked the shop owner to bring a new set of utensils and pushed them in front of Shizen. At this, Shizen immediately lost all resistance, and after thanking him, she picked up the utensils and began to eat eagerly. At the same time, she developed a good impression of this stranger, Rinso. He's a generous good person. Just like that, the two happily ate barbecue for a while, and Rinso had the shop owner add a lot more meat. After eating for some time, Shizen felt comfortable and then belatedly said, "Strange, has Lady Tsunade not returned from the restroom yet?" "Restroom? When did I say she went to the restroom?" "She didn't? Then what did you mean?" Shizen was confused. "Well, because, speak of the devil, and he shall appear." Before Rinso could finish speaking, the barbecue restaurant door was directly knocked open. Bang! Like a gust of wind, a figure quickly arrived beside Rinso, directly stood on a chair, looked down at Rinso, and was full of anger. "Pull!" Tsunade went straight for Rinso's collar, but when she exerted force, she couldn't lift him. Her face slightly awkward, Tsunade exerted force a second time, increasing the intensity. "Pull!" Still couldn't lift him. Tsunade's expression changed. Shizen reacted immediately, frowning and saying, "Lady Tsunade, what exactly is going on?" Hearing this, Tsunade instantly became furious. "What else could be going on? I just wanted to hide under his table, and he immediately exposed me. All the money I saved for so long is gone." Tsunade cried out tragically. "But you can't be so rude," Shizen said very rationally. "No matter what, you can't just treat this. Shizen faltered, realizing she didn't actually know Rinso's name. Rinso wiped the grease from the corner of his mouth and said, "Just call me Wanderer. No matter what, you can't treat Mr. Ronin like that. It's too rude," Shizen said, crossing her arms and lecturing. Tsunade pouted. I know." Tsunade let go and jumped off the chair. "Wait, Wanderer." Shizen reacted, repeating the title. "That sword Kaga-level expert who's become famous in the ninja world over the past year or so?" Tsunade also looked surprised. "That Kaga-level expert whose true face no one has ever seen?" With a hint of curiosity, Tsunade carefully sized up Rinso. From head to toe, from his pants to his clothes, looking at Rinso's handsome appearance, Tsunade couldn't help but roll her eyes. What's the use of being handsome? He's not likable at all. She's such a cute girl, yet he has no pity whatsoever. His heart must be made of stone. However, when Tsunade saw Rinso's eyes, her gaze instantly became blank, and she stood there stunned. She couldn't help but reach out, extending her hand towards Rinso's eyes. "It's so similar. What are you doing?" Rinso frowned and instantly slapped Tsunade's hand away. Possessing the Byakugan and Sharingan, he was very cautious about his eyes. Otherwise, if someone dug them out and used them instantly, he'd have nowhere to cry. And nothing. Tsunade withdrew her hand, the dimness in her eyes flashing away, and she muttered to herself, "How could it be him? Wow, such fragrant barbecue, I want to eat." Tsunade said, changing the subject. Rinso touched his face, always feeling Tsunade's gaze was a bit strange. "Boss, another set of utensils, and 10 more plates of meat," Rinso instructed. Hearing this, Tsunade's eyes lit up. "I didn't expect you to be quite generous. It's just a pity you have no sympathy." "Sympathy? I think I still have some. However, I'm looking at it from the casino's perspective. It's only natural to pay your debts. You're in the wrong, so I naturally won't help you." Rinso stated his case logically. Tsunade pouted, arguing unreasonably. "But I'm just a little girl. Aren't you worried I'd be bullied by those casino thugs?" Rinso sneered. "Lady Tsunade, one of Konoha Sannin, a Kaga-level expert, bullied by a group of thugs? Who would believe that? Someone would definitely believe it. Wait, how do you know my identity? Tsunade reacted, exclaiming. Although Shizen kept calling her Tsunade, the name Tsunade didn't mean anything specific. Her current appearance was that of her 12-year-old self. So how could she be recognized? Not many people knew her childhood appearance, and none of them were this young. Why would this wanderer, who had only become famous in the ninja world for just over a year, recognize her? Tsunade's gaze grew increasingly suspicious. To this, Rinso explained, I know Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha Village. He showed me your picture. You know the old man? So you're a ninja from Konoha? Tsunade pressed. Rinso pondered for a moment, thinking about how he had various aliases in different ninja villages, so he couldn't be considered a pure Konoha ninja. Thus, he said, partially a ninja from Konoha. Partially? A strange description. Does that mean you have a good relationship with Konoha, but strictly speaking, you're not, right? Tsunade confirmed. More or less. Rinso did not deny it. I see, then it's not strange. Tsunade nodded knowingly, and then she saw the Ronin's travels that Rinso had placed on the table. Chapter 93, An Unexpected Turn of Events. Kato Dan is not Tsunade's lover. Is Ronin's Travels the latest volume? Tsunade's eyes lit up. Shizen across from her immediately leaned over, her eyes wide. Clearly, she wanted to see it too. Volume 5 must be the newest. So new it hasn't even been released yet, Rinso thought. So, he affirmed with a it's really Volume 4? That's great. When Volume 4 was released, I was delayed by something and went to buy a day later, but it was already sold out. I couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't expect you to have it here. Let me see, Tsunade announced, picked up the book, and started reading, even forgetting about her grilled meat. She flipped open the pages. As Tsunade read, her expression gradually became strange. Shizen also asked, puzzled, why doesn't it connect to Volume 3 and the protagonist's strength has suddenly increased by such a large margin? Hey, you didn't buy a pirated copy, did you? Tsunade poked Rinso and said. Rinso's expression remained unchanged. He reached out and flipped the book back to the first page, which didn't even have a page number. On the first page, 3 large characters stood out brightly. Volume 5. Volume 5? When was it released? How come I don't know? Tsunade looked bewildered. Didn't I tell you? This book was written by me, Rinso said, as if it were the most natural thing. He publicly called himself the Wanderer, and the book's title was Ronin's Travels. Whose could it be if not his? Wanderer, Ronin's Travels. Who would have thought? Tsunade seemed a bit speechless. Then her expression immediately turned cunning. By the way, you said you wrote this book, so you must have a lot of royalties, right? Royalties? Rinso thought carefully, realizing he had never really calculated it. He only knew that ever since he started writing, he had never lacked money. I don't know the exact amount, probably 10 digits. Rinso estimated conservatively. 10 digits. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, hundreds of millions. Billions. Tsunade's eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. So much money, it could pay off Lady Tsunade's gambling debts at least 5 times over. Even the usually calm Shizen exclaimed, her mouth agape. Huh? What do you mean 5 times? Rinso was even more confused than them. He had thought that with so much money, he would never run out in the future. What did she mean it could pay off Tsunade's gambling debts 5 times over? Are there even more? Rinso cast a surprised look at Tsunade. Tsunade's face flushed, and she snapped. What are you looking at? So what if I owe that much? Nothing. Do as you please. Rinso didn't dare to ask more, afraid this emotionally unstable woman would punch him. It wasn't worth it. My illusion is shattered. Rinso muttered under his breath, feeling some of his illusions about Tsunade breaking. In his previous life, when he read the original work, he quite liked Tsunade. She was brave in love and hate, and very powerful. But encountering her in reality, just her emotional instability made it hard to feel much affection. Hey, Tsunade's tone suddenly softened. What's wrong? Rinso responded. I'm sorry, my attitude was a bit too bad. Tsunade apologized with a sincere expression. She would actually apologize? While Rinso was surprised, some of his displeasure toward Tsunade quietly dissipated. So, could I ask you to help me pay off my gambling debts, please, Tsunade? Using her current 12-year-old appearance, shamelessly whined. Rinso's face was covered in black lines. Well, it seemed he had overestimated Tsunade. Lady Tsunade, Shizen frowned and stopped her. You can't make such a difficult request to someone you just met. Ugh, I know, I just want to try, Tsunade pouted. Her body was that of a child, and it seemed her mindset had also regressed. I just thought, once the gambling debts are paid off, you won't have to keep hiding with me. Tsunade played the emotional card, hoping to stop Shizen from lecturing her. Beside them, Rinso was slightly surprised. What was this called? Even a violent woman has a warm side. Shizen's expression didn't change at all. She continued to lecture. Lady Tsunade, actually, it's because your gambling debts are too high, so hardly any casinos are willing to let you in anymore, right? WHI. How could that be? Huh? How could I think that? Come, eat meat, eat meat. Wow, this meat smells so good and is so delicious. Tsunade stiffly changed the subject, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Oh, my stomach feels a bit off. I'm going to the restroom. Apparently unable to endure Shizen's gaze, Tsunade decisively made a bathroom escape, preparing to avoid the storm for a bit. There's really no way to deal with her. Watching Tsunade leave, Shizen sighed helplessly. Rinso looked at the interesting scene of the two interacting, and a bit of curiosity arose in his heart. Why does Tsunade love to gamble so much? Is it innate? In Rinso's memory, he only remembered Tsunade getting into gambling with Senju Hashirama when she was very young, but he hadn't understood why it developed into such an addiction later on. Shizen hesitated, unsure whether to tell Rinso. If you don't want to say, that's fine, Rinso didn't press. Hearing this, coupled with Tsunade's repeated offenses against Rinso just now, the guilt in Shizen's heart made her choose to briefly explain. There's nothing that can't be said, but my understanding might not be complete. I only know that Tsunade, when she was very young, seemed to have been introduced to gambling by the first Hokage. Later, during the Second Ninja World War, Lady Tsunade's younger brother died in battle, and someone very important to her suddenly disappeared. Lady Tsunade then became increasingly addicted to gambling. Saying this, Shizen couldn't help but sigh. Having traveled the ninja world with Tsunade for many years, she still often heard Tsunade unconsciously call out a name in her sleep at night. She felt that Lady Tsunade might have chosen to escape reality and indulge in gambling because of that person's disappearance. I see. Rinso didn't ask for details, naturally assuming that the sudden disappearance of a very important person referred to the death of her lover, Kato Dan. Otherwise, at that time, there were only a few people Tsunade would consider very important, right? Since Jiraiya and the others were still alive, who else could it be if not Kato Dan? Moreover, the butterfly effect caused by his transmigration could only change the future. It wouldn't affect the past, right? Alas, Shizen couldn't help but sigh. Seeing this, Rinso comforted her. Sorry, I made you think of your deceased uncle. Master Dan? I wasn't thinking of him. Why do you think I was? Shizen looked puzzled. Rinso's expression was even stranger. Not him. When you said a very important person disappeared, weren't you talking about your Uncle Kato Dan? Shizen said matter-of-factly, of course not. Although Uncle Dan was Lady Tsunade's friend back then, they weren't that close yet. But you're right, besides Lady Tsunade, there's no record of that person anywhere else. It's normal that you'd assume it was Uncle Dan when he died. Rinso was no longer in the mood for gossip. His mind was consumed by one thought. Was there another transmigrator before him? Chapter 94. The Deal with Tsunade. Returning to Konoha to visit Karen. You're willing to help me pay off my gambling debts? Tsunade stood up in shock, slamming the table with such force that a crack appeared in the solid wood. Oh no, my table, the shop owner exclaimed, emerging from the kitchen with a panicked expression. Rinso glanced at it silently and said, yes, not only will I help you pay off your gambling debts, but I'll also pay for this table. With that, Rinso directly pulled out a large denomination banknote from his pocket. Owner, after deducting the meal cost, the rest is for the table's compensation, as well as any business losses incurred before you replace it, Rinso said generously. The shop owner took the banknote, and seeing its value, any displeasure he had felt instantly vanished. So much. I can't even earn this in a month. You're too generous. Thank you. The shop owner, unable to hide his joy, quickly moved away, giving Rinso and Tsunade ample space to talk. Tell me what you want. As long as it's not something evil, I can't agree, Tsunade said firmly. Rinso chuckled. Of course it's not something evil. I have two requests. Starting today, for the next year, you must travel with me. During this time, I won't restrict your movements as long as our daily activities are in close proximity. Secondly, within this year, you need to teach me medical ninjutsu knowledge and detoxification knowledge. That's all? Tsunade asked suspiciously. Rinso nodded. Yes, that's all. I think exchanging some money for a year of tutelage from the ninja world's top medical ninja is quite worth it. If you think it's worth it, then it is. In any case, I agree, Tsunade eagerly accepted. Anyway, Rinso didn't restrict her from gambling, and by following Rinso, she could still find local casinos. As for medical instruction, that was even less of a problem. She often taught Shizen, so teaching Rinso as well was just a bit more effort. Moreover, with Rinso around while traveling the ninja world, would she even need to spend her own money on daily expenses? She might even get to read the latest volume of Ronin's Travels every day. How awesome. Thinking this, Tsunade couldn't help but chuckle a few times. Lady Tsunade, really. Shizen was helpless about Tsunade's sudden eccentricities. She just had to put up with it. What else could she do? Rinso sat in the inner chair, his gaze fixed on Tsunade, lost in thought. Spending a large sum to pay off Tsunade's gambling debts was an idea he had the moment he met Tsunade. Firstly, through memory synchronization, he already knew that the shadow clone at Konoha Hospital hadn't made any medical progress for a long time. At the same time, Tsunade was very authoritative in detoxification, which was also his weakness. Secondly, he wouldn't be at ease until he figured out the changes happening to Tsunade. What if it was another transmigrator? Or was it a butterfly effect caused by an existence like the Great Sage Toad, who could foresee the future, foreseeing his future self? In short, the current breakthrough point was with Tsunade. Plus, this matter was somewhat sensitive, so it was better to keep Tsunade by his side and gradually probe. With her gambling debts paid off, Tsunade seemed much more relaxed, happily popping grilled meat into her mouth, and even drinking the sake the shop owner had given Rinso, eating with great gusto. It's worth mentioning that, perhaps feeling it was inappropriate to drink alcohol in a child's form, Tsunade dispelled her transformation jutsu, returning to her original appearance. The moment those astonishing peaks appeared, even Rinso, who had experienced the baptism of Samui, was stunned for several seconds. Is this the difference between a bust of 106 and 96? The sensory experience was almost a qualitative change. Such heaven-defying peaks, coupled with Tsunade's ageless beautiful face maintained by ninjutsu, Rinso felt his patience had improved significantly. All right, since I'm going with you, where are you going next? You should at least tell me, Tsunade suddenly asked during a pause in eating grilled meat. Rinso blurted out, I'm planning a trip to Konoha. Konoha. Tsunade stopped eating meat, falling silent. Shizun, seeing this, immediately suggested, can Lady Tsunade and I wait in a nearby town? We won't go back to Konoha. Rinso nodded, not making things difficult for Tsunade. You can. He knew that with her younger brother's death and the disappearance of her loved ones, Tsunade harbored resentment towards Konoha village. Or rather, she resented Konoha, and thus resisted returning. To get Tsunade to return to Konoha, it would have to be a critical situation where she was indispensable. Otherwise, it would likely be difficult. However, what did that have to do with him? Konoha Village. Ninja Academy. Irika stood at the podium, explaining essential ninja knowledge. Suddenly, he seemed to notice something, frowning as he addressed the red-haired girl in the first row. Karen, why are you spacing out again? Karen was looking out the window, seemingly anticipating someone's appearance, and had unknowingly drifted off. After Irika called her, she immediately apologized. Sorry, Irika-sensei. Never mind, just pay attention now. Irika didn't overly scold Karen, who was just a child. He only said to Rinso, who was next to Karen, Rinso, show Karen your class notes. Rinso nodded and pushed his notes over. Karen's body stiffened slightly, but thinking it was Irika's instruction, she took the notes and whispered her thanks. Thank you. Rinso knew Karen disliked men, so he didn't say much more to avoid putting psychological pressure on her. Karen sighed in relief, looking at Rinso's notes, but her mind drifted off again, her thoughts on the figure she longed for day and night. Brother Wanderer, why don't you come back to see me? Karen murmured silently, her expression downcast. Seeing this, Rinso thought Karen was recalling past events and couldn't help but sigh softly. Rinso-kun cares a lot about Karen, doesn't he? To Rinso's left, Onma Yakumo suddenly spoke, her voice gentle but with a hint of danger. No. Rinso instinctively wanted to explain, but his words suddenly stopped. No, he couldn't be so passive. His tone changed as he said, Doesn't Yakumo care about Karen? Of course I care, but your care and my care are different. Yakumo opened her mouth, not knowing what to say, so she simply pinched Rinso's arm lightly. Rinso-kun, pay attention in class. Yakumo said seriously. Yes, Rinso agreed, thinking to himself, I got through that. However, he still felt a bit heavy-hearted. The classroom seating was 3 people per desk. At his desk, he sat in the middle, with Yakumo on his left and Karen on his right. The 3 at the front desk were Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji. The 3 at the back desk were an unfamiliar classmate, Hinata, and the taciturn Shino Aburame. That is to say, he was surrounded by girls, all of whom had a close relationship with him. Damn, who arranged these seats? Rinso felt that his days at the Ninja Academy would likely not be very peaceful from now on. Ding-a-ling-ling. All right, class dismissed. The bell rang, and Irika announced the end of class. Karen glanced up, then continued to sit in her seat, spacing out, looking utterly dejected. Rinso shook his head, feeling helpless. Who's Karen? Some guy calling himself Wanderer is looking for you. A classmate suddenly walked into the classroom and shouted. Chapter 95 Karen's Thoughts. Lin Sheng's self-doubt. A wanderer? Is it the wanderer from Ronin's travels? How could that be? A wanderer is just a state of being. How could someone be named that? Doesn't Ronin's travels make that very clear? Speaking of which, do you guys read Ronin's travels too? Yeah, my dad said that book is really good, especially the protagonist training process and understanding of swordsmanship. It's genuinely useful. The author must be a master swordsman. Too bad, I only got the first 3 volumes. I couldn't get the 4th. I have it at home. Want me to lend it to you? Really? Thank you so much. For a moment, because of the word wanderer, many in the class started discussing the wildly popular Ronin's travels in the ninja world. Only Karen, upon hearing who was looking for her, transformed completely. Her eyes brightened immensely, and she quickly got up and ran out of the classroom. Rinso sat in his seat, stretching lazily, and thought to himself, Ronin's travels is getting more and more popular, each volume hotter than the last. The 4th volume was printed more than double the copies of the 3rd, yet so many people still couldn't buy it. Looks like I need them to double the print run again for the 5th volume. Collecting his thoughts, Rinso wondered why his shadow clone had returned. Was it to visit Karen? A hint of curiosity arose in his heart, and he also got up and left. Rinso-kun, where are you going? Yakumo asked with a gentle smile. Rinso naturally wouldn't be direct, so he vaguely replied, to relieve myself. Okay. Then Rinso-kun, go quickly and come back soon. Yakumo waved her hand with a sweet smile, her expression adorable. Stepping out of the classroom, Rinso closed his eyes and began his chakra sensing. In the past year, his gains had been considerable. Chakra sensing and concealment were among his most significant achievements. With the Uzumaki Bloodline as his foundation, his improvement in sensing ability was remarkably fast. In terms of chakra concealment, he could now completely hide it within his body, so much so that even close proximity to others wouldn't reveal his presence. This showed how much effort he had put in. Of course, this effort was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, while a shadow clone wouldn't be seen through as a shadow clone, everyone's chakra is unique. If he were to meet several shadow clone avatars in the future and others sensed that their chakra was identical, it would expose everything. At that point, even if they didn't know who was the shadow clone, they would know they were all the same person. Soon, sensing Karen's chakra heading to the small grove next to the Ninja Academy, Rinso immediately moved, his figure flashing and disappearing from the spot. Brother Wanderer, thump! Rinso felt a small figure crash into his arms, hugging him tightly. Looking down, vibrant red hair met his eyes. Rinso smiled and patted Karen's head. Long time no see, Karen. Long time no see. Karen hugged Rinso, unwilling to let go. At the same time, she sniffed subtly, her expression tightening involuntarily. A woman's scent, Karen muttered to herself. What? Rinso asked, not having heard clearly. In nothing. Karen released Rinso and tentatively said, Brother Wanderer smells so nice. What did you use to wash your clothes? Rinso didn't think much of it and replied, It's probably someone else's scent that I accidentally brushed against. I'll ask them for you later. Who is someone else? Karen's voice rose, unable to help but ask, her expression tense. Oh, that. You probably know her. She's Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha. I met her by chance, and now we're traveling the ninja world together. Karen's pupils constricted, and her body stiffened. There was actually a woman with Brother Wanderer, and it was a top-tier kunoichi like Tsunade. What should I do? Karen's mind was in a jumble. Rinso completely failed to notice Karen's body stiffen after hearing his words. He casually patted her head again and said, I came back to Konoha this time just to see you, to see how you're doing, if you've been studying and listening in class, and if you've been training well. I thought we might have grown apart after not seeing each other for so long. No. Karen immediately shook her head, pursing her lips. We won't grow apart. It's just, why hasn't Brother Wanderer come back to see me all this time? Well, Rinso scratched his head, unsure how to explain. After all, from his main body's perspective, Karen clearly had a fear of men. So what would be the point of him returning? Now, it was because Karen was often distracted, which was affecting her training and classes. He had decided to come back and try, to see if he, her savior, could help Karen overcome her emotional block and not be so averse to men. The result was good. In fact, Rinso had a feeling that he seemed to be the culprit causing Karen's distractions, because I had some things to take care of, and I just finished them recently. In any case, I'll come back to see you more often in the future. Rinso made a promise. He felt a sense of nurturing towards Karen, and he was very patient. Perhaps it was because he had saved her himself? I understand. Karen nodded, her eyes filled with joy. She had thought Rinso found her troublesome, which was why he had left her in Konoha and never came to see her. If it was just because he was busy, that was acceptable. By the way, Karen, I heard you don't really like playing with boys? Is it because of what happened in Hidden Grass Village? Rinso asked with concern. Hearing this, Karen shook her head. No, it's not that. I just simply don't want to play with them, especially Mariki Lin Shang. Brother Wanderer, do you know? He flirts with many girls at the same time. He's very fickle. I hate fickle boys, Karen said seriously. If it's Brother Wanderer, he can be an exception, Karen added in her heart. Rinso's expression under his mask stiffened. So, it was for this reason? Not aversion to men? Just dislike for himself? Ino and Hinata are both very good girls, yet they both like this Mariki Lin Shang. It's so strange. I would never fall for a boy like that. I only like someone gentle and protective, like Brother Wanderer, Karen hinted meaningfully. Rinso didn't dwell on Karen's words at all, already completely crushed. Was he really that bad? Rinso fell into a small moment of self-doubt. Ding-a-ling-ling. The school bell rang. Rinso snapped out of it and said, Karen, class is starting. You go back first. We can talk after school. I'll be waiting for you at home. Okay. Karen nodded quickly, her eyes full of anticipation. She trotted towards the classroom, waving her hand. Brother Wanderer, see you after school. Rinso nodded. After Karen's figure disappeared, he looked at a tree behind him. From behind the tree, his main body, Rinso, emerged with a complex expression. Am I really that bad? I don't know, but it's probably best to keep your distance from Karen in the future. Karen probably doesn't like you. The main body, the shadow clone Rinso said. That's true. Rinso nodded, making his decision. A certain red-haired girl was unaware that, unknowingly, she had committed an act that would make her regret it so much in the future that she would want to slap herself. Chapter 96, accompanying Karen, a powerful soul perception. Karen's matter was quickly passed over. Rinso's mind stirred, and he dispelled the Wanderer's shadow clone. Since he had returned, it was a good time to synchronize memories. He wanted to see what his shadow clone had been doing recently and who it had met. Closing his eyes, Rinso skillfully browsed the new memories in his mind, his expression gradually becoming serious. Met Tsunade. Could there be another transmigrator? Stay by her side and slowly probe? That's indeed the most suitable method, worthy of myself. After browsing the memories, Rinso formed a hand seal and created a shadow clone. The shadow clone transformed into the Wanderer persona, nodded to the main body Rinso, and instantly disappeared. At this point, only the main body Rinso remained in the small forest. In the empty small forest, Rinso muttered to himself, I don't know why, but the ninja world has changed since before I was born. Assuming the worst, there are other transmigrators. In any case, I still need to improve my strength and life-saving abilities. Time came to the afternoon. The Wanderer persona of Rinso had already arrived at Karen's house. After more than a year of living there, the place had gained a lot of life. Fruits were placed on the coffee table in the living room, and the sofa showed signs of wear from use. The house had changed, but the people had not. Upon his return this time, Karen's mother was as enthusiastic as ever. After inviting Rinso in, she gratefully began to recount the events of the past year. For example, she had used the silver notes Rinso gave her to open her own restaurant, which was doing very well. Also, she had slowly recovered her health, and the bite marks on her body had long faded. Afterward, she talked about Karen. Everything she said implied that Karen missed him very much, talked about him every day, and hinted whether he could come back to Konoha more often to see Karen. So, Rinso repeated the answer he had given Karen a short while ago to Uzumaki Koyo. Upon learning that Rinso would return to see Karen more often in the future, Uzumaki Koyo was overjoyed and repeatedly expressed her unending gratitude to Rinso. Soon, with a creak, as the door was pushed open, Karen returned home from school and immediately saw her mother and Rinso sitting on the sofa, and she happily shouted, Mom, Brother Wanderer. Then, she skipped over and sat between the two of them. Karen accidentally let her glasses slip from her face and fall to the ground. She stood up, bent down to pick them up, and then sat down again. Only this time, she accidentally sat on Rinso's lap. Brother Wanderer, I didn't mean to. Karen lowered her head, looking a little embarrassed. It's fine. Rinso didn't mind Karen's small mistake. But why wasn't she getting off his lap? Rinso opened his mouth, wanting to tell Karen to get down, but swallowed the words back. Forget it. She's just a child. Rinso chose to acquiesce. Perhaps Karen just wanted to experience fatherly or brotherly love. Karen, you and Mr. Ronin have a good chat. Mom will go cook now. Uzumaki Koyo smiled and got up to go to the kitchen. Next, Karen sat in Rinso's arms, and the two of them talked about what had happened over the past year. During this, Rinso did not hide the fact that Ronin's Travels was a book he had written. When Karen heard this, her eyes lit up, full of admiration. This gave Rinso a great sense of accomplishment. As they chatted, it was dinner time, and Uzumaki Koyo had also prepared dinner. The three of them ate dinner warmly, like a mother, brother, and a sister. After dinner, Rinso was assigned a room. The room was very neat, even having men's bedding that had been prepared long ago. According to Uzumaki Koyo, Karen had specifically prepared it for him to stay in when he returned to Konoha. It had been over a year, and now was finally being used. Karen, you're thoughtful. Rinso gently activated his head-patting skill. Karen blushed, her cheeks red, and after a satisfied goodnight, she left. 3 days passed in a flash. Rinso had been staying at Karen's house, giving Karen a good dose of brotherly love. Having read the original work, he didn't want Karen to become the obsessed woman she was in the original work again. And from the results, in the 3 days, Karen had successively started interacting with Sasuke, Naruto, Shikamaru, and others, and did not show any signs of infatuation with anyone, which greatly reassured Rinso. Thus, Rinso, having enjoyed enough comfortable life, bid farewell to Karen and her mother on the morning of the 4th day. Although Karen was reluctant, she was very well-behaved and didn't make a fuss, only looking at Rinso with expectant eyes. It wasn't until Rinso personally said, "Don't worry, I'll come back to see you often," that she finally waved goodbye to Rinso with satisfaction. Brother Wanderer, goodbye. Mr. Ronin, goodbye. Rinso also waved to the mother and daughter. Little Karen, goodbye. Mrs. Koyo, goodbye. After saying goodbye, Rinso quickly left Konoha and headed toward the town not far from Konoha village. He and Tsunade had decided that once he left Konoha, he would go there to meet her, and then they would begin their travels. However, when Rinso arrived at the town and reached the prearranged meeting inn, pushing open the door, he saw a messy room and Tsunade's missing luggage. Did she run away? Rinso was bewildered. He observed the room's arrangement. The bedding wasn't folded, the floor wasn't wiped, and he could even see footprints, indicating she hadn't left long ago. Moreover, all her portable medical equipment was gone. This could only mean one thing. Tsunade and Shizen left in a hurry. She had just left and in a hurry. Could it be that she got news of his arrival and hurried away? Impossible. Rinso himself denied this conjecture. He knew that although Tsunade had a fiery temper and loved to be unreasonable and pushy, she wasn't so rotten as a person. Otherwise, with her strength, how could she owe money to so-called casinos? If she just showed her fists, it would be good if she didn't take money from a casino. So, did something happen? Realizing this, Rinso closed his eyes and directly used his most powerful sensory method, soul perception. With his already strong mental power, and after gaining Ama Yakumo's soul talent, his soul power grew stronger almost every day. Now, his basic stats alone were terrifyingly high. On this basis, if the amplification of the Mangekyo Sharingan was added, it would be even more astonishing. Currently, Rinso wasn't using the Mangekyo Sharingan, yet even so, his mental power was as bottomless as the sea. Boom! Mental power poured out, spreading outwards in a radius from himself as the center. Soon, as his mental perception continuously expanded, Rinso had enveloped the entire town. Finally, his mental power completely covered the town, and only then did it stop spreading. Rinso looked at a small house on the edge of the town and whispered, "Found her." Chapter 97, Tsunade's Other Side, Raza's Warning. At the edge of the town, inside a simple wooden house, a man of about 30 lay on a wooden bed, blood constantly seeping from his right leg. His calf was severed, held together only by a layer of skin. 2 meters from the wooden bed, a boy of only 7 or 8 years old and his mother waited anxiously. Beside the wooden bed, Tsunade seriously directed Shizun in performing the surgery. Cut the skin, stop the bleeding first, then clean the damaged tissue. Shizun held the scalpel, skillfully performing the surgery under Tsunade's direction. Time passed by minute. With the aid of medical ninjutsu, the man's leg was completely reattached, leaving only a circle of suture marks. Seeing this, the man's wife immediately pulled her son to kneel, about to kowtow to Tsunade and Shizun. Tsunade, seeing this, quickly stopped her, saying, "There's no need for this." The woman was somewhat at a loss, "But I really don't know how to express my gratitude to you." Saying this, she was about to kowtow again. Tsunade looked helpless, then said, "Why thank me? I'm not doing it for free. But our family already." The woman looked troubled, seeing the impoverished state of her home, where even rats wouldn't visit. She really didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Tsunade's gaze shifted to the table in the room, where a small wooden basket sat, and inside the basket were coarse grained steamed buns. She walked over and picked up the basket, then thought for a moment and put it down, only taking out one steamed bun, saying, "This is the payment. Shizun, let's go." Tsunade didn't stay a moment longer, quickly leaving with Shizun. Seeing this, the woman immediately understood Tsunade's meaning. Hot tears streamed from her eyes, and she said to her son beside her, "They are our benefactors." "Mom, I remember." Outside the wooden house, Rinso leaned against a tree, watching Tsunade and Shizun emerge, and said, I didn't realize that the ninja world's top medical ninja charges such a low fee for a single treatment. Tsunade felt nothing about Rinso's sudden return. She just rolled her eyes, took a bite of the hard steam bun, and said, "If it were a rich person like you, it would be 100 million per treatment." Rinso smiled and didn't argue. Then, the three walked together towards the inn. Looking at Tsunade's back, his eyes held a smile. Although she has a bad temper and likes to throw her weight around, she's really hard to dislike. Thinking of this, he pulled out a silver note and patted Tsunade's shoulder. "What do you want?" Tsunade impatiently turned around, about to get angry and say she didn't like being patted on the shoulder, when she saw the large denomination silver note in front of her. Rinso extended it further. "Take it. You must have been holding back for a long time. Go and enjoy yourself." "All right." Tsunade didn't ask why, happily took the silver note, instructed Shizen to take the medical ninjutsu tools back and put them away before finding her, then ran off without looking back to find a casino. Rinso, seeing this, quickly shouted, "We're leaving for the land of wind tomorrow. Don't play too late." Tsunade's perfunctory voice came from afar, growing fainter. "Got it." Beside him, Shizen first shook her head helplessly at Tsunade's departing back, then asked Rinso with some curiosity, "Land of wind? It's all sand there. What are we going there for?" "Oh, fourth Kazekage Raza is selling gold dust to outsiders. I'm planning to buy some." This was the truth. In a ninja world, due to development, gold, while precious, was mostly used as jewelry, so its value is actually very unstable. If Raza truly dared to export a large amount of gold dust, the price of gold would immediately plummet. But for Rinso, as long as the ninja world's technology continued to develop, the value of gold would immediately be guaranteed. Therefore, acquiring gold dust now and stockpiling, it would be a surefire profitable business in the future. Unfortunately, Sunagakir's shadow clone still hasn't had a chance to get close to Raza, and I don't know when I'll be able to acquire magnet release. Otherwise, I would just go to the desert to extract gold dust myself. Perhaps, this trip to Sunagakir, I can find a way to connect Sunagakir's avatar with Raza. Rinso thought to himself. Sunagakir. Yellow sand filled the sky. Sunagakir Ninja Academy. In a private office, Rinso stood in an empty space, being scrutinized by the man in front of him. The man was in his prime, with wine-red hair that stood up like thorns, not well-groomed, and a serious expression that naturally carried a hint of sternness. "Lord Kazekage." Rinso greeted him. Raza grunted slightly, looking at the child in front of him, who had developed much faster than his peers, his emotions completely unrevealed. Suinao, first in the entrance exam, breaking all test records, truly impressive. Raza glanced at the material in his hand, seemingly praising him. "Thank you, Lord Kazekage." Rinso politely thanked him. Raza was slightly surprised. A 6-year-old child, yet he showed no fear towards him. Was he naturally calm, or did he simply not care? Raza felt it could only be the former, which made him appreciate Rinso a bit more. Naturally calm, a good prodigy for a ninja. It was just a pity he had to associate with people he shouldn't. Raza's voice deepened, carrying a hint of displeasure. "Suinao, your potential is not small, and in the future, you have great hope of becoming a pillar of the village. However, you should not interact with Gaara." Raza recalled the report from the ENBU ninja who had been monitoring Gaara not long ago. He learned that Rinso had met Gaara while playing in the park some time ago. Unlike other children, Rinso played with Gaara, and within a few days, their friendship blossomed, becoming good friends. Normally, seeing his child make a good friend, he, as a father, should be happy. But he was not only Gaara's father, but also the fourth Kazekage of Sunagakir. And Gaara was not just a 6-year-old child, but the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi Shikaku. A Jinchuriki did not need emotions. They only needed to become a qualified weapon. That was why he had sent people to assassinate Gaara, not only to test whether Gaara could control Shikaku, but also to erode his emotions. "Suinao, you're not allowed to play with Gaara anymore. I can introduce you to new friends." Raza's tone was forceful, leaving no room for rebuttal. Rinso smiled helplessly and could only nod. Well, it seemed his plan to interact with Gaara and acquire good things from him was going to be shattered. He would have to find other ways, or perhaps he would have to find a way to correct Raza's outrageously mistaken beliefs. Good that you understand. You may leave." Raza waved his hand, then watched Rinso depart. Raza did not yet know that this decision of his would lead to consequences that he would deeply regret. For example, what kind of damage would a furious Shikaku, no longer suppressed by Gaara, cause? Chapter 98 Gaara Goes Berserk, the Rogue's Disguise Revealed. It was afternoon. Rinso left the Ninja Academy after school and habitually walked towards the park. For some time now, he would go to the park to play every day after school. Playing was secondary. His main goal was to interact with Gaara, who was playing in the sand there, to build a good relationship, and see if he could pick up anything good. After all, in the entire hidden sand village, only things from Raza, Gaara, and Chio could improve him. Raza had magnet release, Chio had puppet technique and the One's own life reincarnation, and Gaara had sand manipulation and ninjutsu talent. Among them, Gaara's ninjutsu talent was what Rinso desired most. It wasn't that Raza's magnet release, Chio's puppet technique, or Gaara's sand manipulation weren't appealing to him. Rather, these three, no matter how you looked at it, were just means. Picking them up might enrich his repertoire of abilities. But the boost in the end was not as good as something like talent. Talent that could be stacked. What's more, Gaara's talent was so outstanding. In the original work, at only 15 or 16 years old, he already possessed Kaga-level strength, and that was with the influence of Shikaku. It's conceivable that if Shikaku hadn't interfered from childhood, Gaara would have become Kaga-level even sooner. And this was all due to Gaara's top-tier ninjutsu talent. Currently, Rinso's ninjutsu talent had already merged with many others. But with this kind of talent, no amount of merging is too much. The more he merges, the faster his strength will improve. Unfortunately, shortly after he started interacting with Gaara, Raza stopped him. Today would probably be his last time interacting with Gaara. He should at least go and say goodbye to him. With this thought, Rinso walked to the park and immediately saw Gaara sitting alone in the sandbox, playing by himself. He was channeling chakra, using sand manipulation to control the sand, forming various buildings and objects. Houses, shops, little people, small animals. Gaara created a vivid sand town in the sandbox. He looked up, scanning his surroundings, seemingly wanting praise. But as soon as the children in the park saw him, they immediately backed away, all moving far from him. Gaara's eyes dimmed, and he lowered his head in disappointment. The sand town also slowly disintegrated with his disappointment, returning to a pile of sand. He sat with his legs hugged in the sand pile, lost in lonely thought. Gaara. Rinso's call came. The moment he heard that voice, Gaara's originally lifeless eyes immediately brightened, and his whole being burst with vitality, looking towards where the voice came from. "Suinao," Gaara said, seemingly calmly, but his agitated body language betrayed him. He controlled the sand again, and almost instantly, he recreated the sand town from before, looking at Rinso as if awaiting praise. Rinso, in response, smiled and gave a thumbs up without hesitation. "Well done, what a beautiful town." Gaara smiled. "Thank you." Afterward, he continued to build various objects and buildings with sand, showing them one by one to Rinso, and each time he received praise, the smile on his lips would widen a little. Looking at such a happy Gaara, Rinso sighed slightly, unsure whether to tell him that he wouldn't be able to play with him anymore. "How about we just play today, and I'll tell him tomorrow?" Rinso decided. However, the course of events was not something he could control. Just as Rinso intended to enjoy every second and planned to tell him tomorrow, an Umbu from the hidden sand village suddenly appeared. "The Kazakage has already said that you're not allowed to contact Gaara. Leave immediately." The Sunagakure Umbu's voice was cold, seemingly devoid of any emotion, like a machine. Hearing this, Rinso sighed slightly and said to the somewhat bewildered Gaara, "Gaara, I probably won't be able to come and play with you anymore." "Why?" Gaara shook his head, his mouth slightly open, seemingly unable to accept this outcome. He looked at the Sunagakure Umbu with an expression that demanded an explanation. "Why? Why doesn't father allow Suinao to play with me?" "No, why? Young Master Gaara, please control your emotions." The eyes beneath the Sunagakure Umbu's mask looked at Gaara with both apprehension and disgust. His gaze was caught by Gaara, and the young boy's heart grew cold, sadness welling up within him. Rinso wasn't the first person to approach him, nor was he the first to be driven away by his father. He wasn't accepted, and no one in the village liked him. Even those who were willing to accept him would be mercilessly driven away by his father, and even his older sister Tamari and older brother Kankuro were no exception. It was the same scene again. He showed off his sand sculptures, getting along well with his older brother and sister, but his father didn't allow him to be happy. So, his older brother and sister were driven away. No one was willing to approach him anymore. Until Rinso appeared, he finally had a friend again. And Rinso wasn't immediately driven away like the others. He congratulated his uncle and was happy for a long time. He thought he could finally have a friend. But the inevitable still arrived. His last friend was gone too. "Why? Why?" Gaara's voice grew louder, and a violent emotion spread through his chest. His eyes gradually became covered in black, becoming incredibly fierce. At the same time, the chakra within his body gradually went berserk, a massive and terrifying chakra surging forth. Not good. The Sunagakure Umbu's face changed drastically, chakra surging in his palm, seemingly about to use some sealing technique. However, Gaara merely glanced at him, and a giant arm made of sand swatted the Umbu away, his whereabouts unknown. Gaara looked around, The children who were still playing in the park all screamed and ran away, their eyes filled with fear and disgust as they looked at him. This further stimulated Gaara, causing the chakra within him to become even more violent. Finally, Gaara's chakra was completely suppressed, and the tailed beast chakra, filled with boundless rage and resentment, was no longer restrained. Roar! Under a roar that echoed throughout the hidden sand village, Gaara's skin fell off like sand, revealing another face beneath the outer layer, and his body rapidly grew larger. Rinso quickly fled, barely avoiding being crushed to death, and then immediately recognized whose face it was. Ichibi Shikaku. Gaara had gone berserk, and it was an ultimate berserk state of complete tailed beast transformation, just as Rinso was contemplating whether to expose his strength and suppress Gaara. In the air, Raza's voice rang out. Gaara, clear your head. Shikaku, behave yourself. Raza stood on a floating platform made of gold dust, manipulating a large amount of gold dust, his power terrifying. Meanwhile, on the rooftop of a nearby building, a masked man slowly spoke. Fourth Kazekage, do you need my help? Hearing this voice, Rinso raised an eyebrow. This, it seems, was his Ronin alter ego shadow clone. Chapter 99, Slaying Shoha, Revealing Strength. Raza suppressed his anger as much as possible and calmly said to Rinso, the Ronin alter ego, this is a family matter of the hidden sand village. Mr. Ronin doesn't need to interfere. I will deal with him shortly. Oh, is that so? Then I wish the fourth Kazekage all the best. Rinso didn't force his way in. He nodded, his eyes watching the show with interest. Raza opened his mouth, wanting Rinso to leave. After all, if an unfamiliar Kaga-level expert were to launch a sneak attack or cause trouble while he was suppressing Shikaku, it would be more than he could handle. However, Rinso, in front of him, besides being an unfamiliar Kaga-level expert, also had another identity. A major client preparing to purchase large quantities of gold dust. Facing an unfamiliar Kaga-level expert, he would be perfectly justified in not only politely asking him to leave, but even forcibly expelling him. But when facing a major client who could alleviate the hidden sand village's short-term financial situation, he had to put on a smiling face. The two contradictory identities made Raza himself conflicted. His mouth opened and closed, but in the end he said nothing, only diverting some of his attention to Rinso. Roar! When enemies meet, their eyes burn with hatred. Shikaku and Raza were not fighting for the first time. After the death of the previous Ichibi Jinchuriki, Bunpuku, Shikaku had rampaged many times. However, each time, he was no match for Raza. Raza's magnet release, which could extract large amounts of gold dust in the desert, was simply Shikaku's natural enemy. Thus, Shikaku, who was not lacking in intelligence, after a brief consideration, came up with a crude idea. Since he was destined to be suppressed, then he would indulge in slaughter. He would kill until the hidden sand village had no successors, venting all the frustration in his heart. So Shikaku opened his mouth and wind release. Drilling air bullet condensed within it. Boom! The drilling air bullet was spat out by Shikaku, initially aimed at Raza, but in the instant before it was released, Shikaku changed direction and spat it towards the most densely populated residential area of the hidden sand village. Raza, who had already condensed gold dust in front of him, frowned and, at the cost of consuming more chakra, quickly manipulated the gold dust to block it. Bang! The wind cannon collided with the gold dust, and the aftermath spread in ripples, shattering the windows of the residential area. With the wind cannon blocked, Shikaku became even more enraged, condensing drilling air bullet faster at his mouth, and firing them erratically in all directions. Raza responded to each one, his chakra rapidly depleting. Realizing that he couldn't continue to be depleted like this, he gritted his teeth, ignored a drilling air bullet heading towards the outer area of the hidden sand village, and fully controlled the gold dust, which surged toward Shikaku like an overwhelming tide. How ruthless! Rinso shook his head slightly, exchanging minor losses in the peripheral areas for a quick resolution to Shikaku. Rinso did not comment on the right or wrong of this approach. However, he was about to make his move, and so, he pushed off with his legs, like an arrow released from a bowstring, flying to the predicted landing spot of the drilling air bullet ahead of time. Behind him were several families living on the outskirts of the hidden sand village. Elderly people with limited mobility, women holding children, and men who had just returned home from work. Facing the drilling air bullet directly, the fear of death made their expressions terrified, tears streaming down their faces. Rinso remained silent, drawing the long sword from his waist, chakra gathering on the blade. Slash! A silver flash. Zhong! The long sword was resheathed, and then a crack appeared in the giant drilling air bullet, which instantly dispersed, turning into nothing but a gust of wind that ruffled the hair and clothes of the people behind Rinso. The families, having narrowly escaped death, stared blankly at Rinso, wanting to thank him. But Rinso had already flashed away, leaving the area. It wasn't that he didn't want to accept thanks, but rather, his alter ego was in danger. He could see it from afar. At the feet of Shikaku, who was being suppressed by Raza, there was still a group of people who hadn't had time to escape, and they were being targeted by the enraged Shikaku. And among this group was his own Sunagakure alter ego. Bang! Golden dust gathered from all directions, restricting Shikaku to this small, confined area of the park, making it difficult for him to move. And in the park, Sunagakure Rinso and other Sunagakure villagers who hadn't managed to escape far were clearly categorized as casualty statistics. Shikaku clenched his enormous fist, looked at the Sunagakure villagers at his feet, and angrily brought down his attack. Before being sealed, he couldn't possibly not kill anyone, could he? Suddenly, Shikaku saw Rinso, and looking at Rinso's face, he could feel Gaara, whom he was suppressing, actually beginning to show some resistance. Is he a very important person? Shikaku realized this, and somewhat excitedly raised his hand, preparing to target Rinso first. However, when he brought his palm down, what he met was not the satisfaction of crushing an ant, but immense pain. Bang! His arm was smoothly severed from the shoulder and fell heavily to the ground. Shikaku watched this scene in shock and anger, discovering the masked man who had appeared at his feet at some unknown point. This person who had cut open his wind cannon, someone who made even Raza wary. Shikaku immediately realized that his arm had been severed by this person, and he was incredibly enraged. Damn it! Damn it! Why did you have to ruin everything? Damn it! Shikaku angrily exclaimed like a half-grown child, thrashing about excitedly, but was quickly suppressed by the gold dust. Seeing this, Rinso pushed off with his legs and, with a single leap, landed on top of Shikaku's head. On top of Shikaku's head, Gaara's eyes were closed, his consciousness dormant. Rinso walked over, lightly tapped Gaara's forehead with his fingertip, and injected a vast amount of spiritual power into him. It's time to wake up. As his words fell, Gaara's eyes snapped open, letting out a painful cry. Ah! As Gaara awoke, Shikaku roared to the sky. I just got out, damn it, duh. Then, starting from Gaara, Shikaku's body began to develop cracks, starting from his head. Within a few seconds, he completely disintegrated, turning into tiny grains of sand, vanishing without a trace. Rinso landed, holding the weakened Gaara in his arms. As soon as he landed, Raza, who had retracted his gold dust, came over with an Umboom member, took Gaara, and apparently went to reinforce the seal. Mr. Ronin, the Hidden Sand Village is immensely grateful. Raza bowed slightly, expressing his polite thanks. Rinso calmly accepted the bow, as it was deserved. Shattering the drilling air bullet and severing Shikaku's arm were both his accomplishments, saving many lives. Raza, as the fourth Kazekage, although he himself had chosen to abandon these people, now that these people were alive, he had to acknowledge this favor. Mr. Ronin, please come with me to the reception room. Raza's attitude had changed compared to before, becoming much more amiable. Because Rinso not only did not attack him during Shikaku's rampage, but instead helped him. He was a benefactor. Coupled with Rinso already being a major client, the combination of identities naturally led to a change in his attitude. Secondly, Rinso had perfectly demonstrated his strength in the battle just now. Severing Shikaku's arm and shattering the drilling air bullet, he had been at ease throughout, perfectly proving the rumors of him being a Kaga-level expert. If he didn't treat a Kaga-level expert with respect, then he would be muddle-headed. Even though, in Rinso's eyes, he had always been quite muddle-headed. After all, what normal person would send people to assassinate their own Jinchuriki just to eradicate their emotions? Chapter 100 Lin Sheng's bold statement and his approach to treating Jinchuriki. In the reception room, Rinso and Raza sat opposite each other. Having conversed for a while, their discussions sometimes contentious, sometimes filled with laughter. After some deliberation, they finally settled on a price that both found acceptable. Once they agreed that the gold dust would be stored in a storage scroll and taken away, the transaction was complete. There was no contract, nor any witnesses. Both were Kaga-level experts. Their reputations alone served as the best guarantee of credit. By the way, fourth Kazekage, do you mind if I ask a few questions about your village's Jinchuriki? Rinso boldly asked. Raza frowned. The sensitive word, Jinchuriki, immediately put him on alert. If it were anyone else, he would have immediately flared up and questioned whether the other party had ulterior motives. But Rinso was different. Rinso himself was not from any of the 5 great ninja villages. He was merely a wanderer. Furthermore, Rinso was currently a hero who had helped Hidden Sand Village and a major client who had purchased a large amount of his gold dust. By all accounts, if Rinso wanted to say a few words, he had no reason to refuse. So, Raza could only nod. Mr. Ronin, please speak freely. Then I won't be polite. Rinso nodded, speaking bluntly. I've been to many ninja villages and encountered quite a few Jinchuriki, but your village's way of treating its Jinchuriki is the worst I've ever seen. The worst. Hearing Rinso give such a severe assessment directly, Raza felt a slight displeasure in his heart, but he could only patiently say, "Why do you say that?" Rinso naturally replied, "At least those Jinchuriki haven't had their tailed beasts rampage." Raza instantly frowned, disagreeing. The current rampage is because Gaara himself lacks sufficient talent, and excessive emotions are holding him back. Rinso scoffed without hesitation. According to your thinking, Hidden Sand Village will never have a perfect Jinchuriki who can fully utilize the tailed beast's power. If even emotions are extinguished, how can one achieve perfect understanding with the tailed beast within? Raza, why don't you try giving the Jinchuriki enough care and letting him have his own friends? See if his rampages increase or decrease. At that time, it will naturally become clear whose view, yours or mine, is correct. Rinso revealed his true intentions. That's right, the essence of all he said was to pave the way for his Hidden Sand Village identity. As long as Raza wavered even slightly and was willing to try his viewpoint, who else could Gaara's friend be? It could only be himself, from Hidden Sand Village. Of course, Rinso also knew not to overdo it. After saying this, Rinso quickly pretended to have said too much, apologizing. Sorry, I got a bit carried away. Ultimately, it's your village's Jinchuriki, and how you treat him is your village's business. I just felt moved seeing such a young child bear everything he shouldn't have to. Raza's heart was shaken, and he remained silent. He wasn't so easily persuaded, but Rinso's words had, after all, touched him somewhat. Rinso left, leaving Raza alone in the reception room. He actually wasn't confident in his plan, but doing something was better than doing nothing. He said these words, and if they were useful, he'd profit. If not, it wouldn't hurt much, and he'd just find another way. His purpose in coming this time was to buy gold dust and to help his alternate identity along the way. It was just a convenient side effort. Time flew by. A few days later, in the Kazakage's office, Rinso was summoned by Raza. In the office, there were two other people, a man and a woman, who looked older than Rinso and were curiously observing him. Rinso recognized them instantly upon seeing them. Mainly Temari, whose spiky bun hairstyle was too distinctive. And recognizing Temari, the person next to her could only be Kankuro. The current Kankuro, without his characteristic facial markings, was indeed hard to recognize. So now, these are the friends I'm introducing to you, my son and daughter. From now on, you'll be companions, so get along well, Raza said from the side, leaving no room for doubt. Hello, my name is Kankuro, said Kankuro, whose face had no markings and whose personality was still normal. Hello, my name is Temari. Temari followed closely, smiling at Rinso, standing before her. Looking at the two standing before him, Rinso nodded politely. Hello, my name is Suinao. Raza nodded in satisfaction. From now on, you all play together. Yes, Kankuro and Temari dared not refute their father's words. Rinso also had no objection, although he actually wanted to be with Gaara more. Kankuro and Temari, at best, were jonin. There was really nothing much to gain from them, far inferior to Gaara. However, it seemed he had no chance to approach Gaara. Ever since Gaara's last rampage, he hadn't seen Gaara in the park for a long time. Most likely, he had been confined and restricted somewhere. You may leave. I still have matters to attend to, Raza said, dismissing them. Understood, Temari replied, leading Kankuro and Rinso out of the Kazakage's office. After stepping out, Temari looked at Rinso and said, Father wants us to play with you, so I'll take you to build sandcastles. Building sandcastles is a lot of fun, Kankuro chimed in. I'm fine with anything, big sister Temari, Rinso said with a smile. Big sister? Hearing this address, Temari felt a wave of comfort. He was a different kind of child from Gaara, and Kankuro, he actually called her big sister. She loved younger brothers who could call her big sister anytime, anywhere, and who trusted her. Yet, neither of her two biological younger brothers was like that. Now, the new Rinso was quite good. If you ever need anything, just use my name. I accept you as my younger brother, Temari said enthusiastically. Rinso shrugged, not understanding why Temari was so enthusiastic. His alternate identity's face had been deliberately disfigured, just like in Hidden Cloud Village, with several scars added to his face, so he shouldn't have looked that good. Never mind, who cares? Temari being nice to him was a good thing, after all. Then let's go build sandcastles quickly. Big sister Temari can teach me then, Rinso said. Temari made a sound of satisfaction, her lips curling into a smile. Why are you making such a strange sound? Kankuro grumbled. Temari immediately reined in her smile, her expression speechless. She hated younger brothers who wouldn't rely on their big sister and even complained about her. In the office, Raza summoned an umbu. The umbu knelt before him, reporting, Kazaka-sama, in the days since Gaara recovered, he has frequently mentioned Suanao. What do you think? Raza stood by the window, looking out at the village where yellow sand filled the sky, his voice tinged with a hint of confusion. Yashimaru, do you think my way of treating Gaara is correct? Chapter 101, Accepting Gaara, Mastering Dust Release. Yashimaru fell silent for a moment. He didn't understand Raza's intention in saying those words. Testing him? Or did he really start to suspect him? Yashimaru, answer me. Raza seemed to be contemplating something. Yashimaru no longer hesitated. Regardless of whether it was Raza's probing, he cautiously spoke, Kazake-sama, perhaps we can give Gaara a chance. Raza nodded slightly. I understand. He looked at the view of the hidden sand village outside the window and calmly said, for 1 year, remove all restrictions on Gaara and see if he can independently master the power of a chibi. Yes. Yashimaru genuinely loved Gaara, and at this moment his voice was filled with uncontrollable joy, as if he felt the same way. Good, go convey my orders. Raza waved his hand. Yashimaru bowed respectfully and left. That night, Rinso had already changed into his pajamas and was about to go to bed when a knock suddenly sounded at the door. Thump, thump, thump. He quickly walked over and opened the door. Outside the door was Gaara, holding a packet of wound medicine. Seeing Rinso open the door, he eagerly offered the medicine with both hands. About what happened this afternoon? I'm sorry, I almost hurt you. This is WoW medicine. Please accept it. Gaara's voice trembled with fear, as if he was afraid Rinso would refuse. Because before this, he had already visited others with wound medicine. Those people only shouted at him, "Get lost, monster!" After seeing him in that state, would Rinso still accept him? Gaara wasn't sure. He also began to doubt what his uncle Yashimaru had told him at home about love-healing wounds. The scales in his heart swayed, and Gaara swallowed hard, waiting for Rinso's response. Whoosh! The paper bag was taken by Rinso. Gaara looked up in surprise, seeing Rinso with a bright smile. Remember to work hard to control that power well in the future. Gaara's eyes questioned him. Rinso continued to smile, so don't let it happen again. I forgive you. That's great. Gaara shouted out loud, no different from an ordinary child. The next day, Gaara naturally joined Rinso's small group. Although the small group consisted of the 3 siblings, Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara, Rinso was the bridge connecting the 3 of them. Compared to his older brother and sister, Gaara clearly trusted his friend more. As for Temari and Kankuro, they had no objections to their younger brother joining and welcomed him warmly. They used to play with Gaara too. It was just that their father, Raza, had forcibly separated them, and now that they were reunited, they naturally had no reluctance. Time flew by. After forming a bond with Gaara, Rinso's plan to infiltrate the 4 great shinobi villages was largely successful. In the following days, his friends did not increase. It was still the 3 of them, Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara, but their bond grew deeper. Moreover, because Rinso was more mature in thought and more assertive, the small group gradually began to follow his lead. In Awagakure, inside his independent residence, Rinso, in his Aweo guise, lay on the sofa, emitting comfortable murmurs. Good. Push a little harder, or you won't get a single bite of breakfast. I know. Pervert Aweo. Kuratsuchi sat on the backrest of the sofa, her feet on Rinso's back, massaging his muscles with just the right amount of force. Judging by the force and skill, such massages had occurred at least 100 times. Step, step. Kuratsuchi, as if to vent her anger, stomped on Rinso's back with all her might. However, with Kuratsuchi's strength, how could she possibly break through Rinso's defense? After a series of stomps, it only made Rinso more comfortable, and he stretched languidly, looking utterly satisfied. Kuratsuchi, on the other hand, had expended too much energy, her forehead beaded with sweat, and her face flushed. Why is this happening? Kuratsuchi was on the verge of tears, feeling incredibly frustrated. Rinso glanced at her lightly and said, "Go eat breakfast." These words were like a panacea. Upon hearing them, Kuratsuchi instantly stopped her emotional outburst, then sat on the sofa and eagerly began to savor the breakfast on the coffee table. A bowl of vegetable porridge and 2 thin-skinned, generously filled beef patties. Kuratsuchi ate with oil dripping from her mouth, a satisfied smile on her lips. Rinso watched, unable to help but chuckle. Kuratsuchi's face flushed, and she snarled at Rinso like a small tiger. "What are you looking at? It's all your fault for drugging me. Otherwise I would never be like this." Rinso smiled, not refuting, but merely urged, "Anyway, eat quickly, we're going to the shopping street with me in a bit." Kuratsuchi gave a proud snort and whispered, I know, I'll eat quickly. Then, she immersed herself in the delicious food once more. With nothing else to do, Rinso sat aside and began to manipulate chakra for nature transformation. Earth, wind, fire. Chakra was transformed into 3 different attributes. Subsequently, the 3 attribute chakras began to slowly merge under Rinso's control. This process was incredibly difficult. Just controlling 3 attribute chakras simultaneously was already very challenging. Most people would get stuck at this step for a long time. Moreover, on top of that, it required merging the 3 attributes according to an extremely precise ratio, without the slightest error, to form dust release chakra. Rinso was currently at this stage and had been stuck for several months. Each time, the ratio of the 3 chakras would fluctuate slightly, causing the condensation of dust release chakra to fail. But today, he didn't know if it was because he had just received a massage, but he felt exceptionally good. The 3 chakras were like obedient children, allowing him to manipulate them. Earth, wind, fire. Rinso suddenly opened his eyes, and a dust-white energy condensed in his hand, which he casually fired out. Sizzle. The dust-white energy hit the living room television. The television, like an ice cube encountering a hot iron ball, was instantly annihilated without a trace. Beside him, Kuratsuchi, with beef patty grease still on the corner of her mouth, exclaimed in surprise, "Dust release. You've mastered Grandpa's dust release." Kuratsuchi's surprise was evident, but what followed was deep despair. Rinso had mastered dust release, so her dream of defeating him and becoming her own master was shattered. How could she possibly defeat Rinso, who possessed the dust release Kekkei Toda? Kuratsuchi's expression was ashen, feeling that the beef patty in her mouth wasn't. Well, it was still very fragrant. Chew, chew, chew. Kuratsuchi chewed resignedly, her expression dejected. Rinso didn't notice Kuratsuchi's expression, immersed in the joy of having mastered dust release. Over a year's time, countless days and nights. Dust release. This water drop of a ninja world that ignored all defenses and instantly killed anyone who showed their face. This Kekkei Toda that had consumed most of his energy and time. He had finally mastered it. Chapter 102 Angry Kuroto. Deidara setting up an explosion. After the initial joy faded, Rinso noticed the dejected Kuratsuchi. Her expression was so obvious that he almost immediately understood what she was thinking. A slight smile played on his lips. He was quite satisfied with his dynamic with Kuratsuchi. It had taken him over a year to finally train this little brat, Kuratsuchi, to his liking. Not to mention making Kuratsuchi give him back massages every day. Serving tea and water, carrying shopping bags. These were all commonplace. Whenever they argued, and Kuratsuchi threw a tantrum, a small threat, like withholding food, was enough to easily control her. It turned Kuratsuchi into his personal little maid. This past year, Rinso had truly experienced the wonderful life of being waited on. His only regret was that Kuratsuchi was too young to wear a maid outfit right now. Otherwise, he would definitely buy one for Kuratsuchi to wear, just to feast his eyes. Hurry up and eat. If you don't finish in 3 minutes, you won't get lunch, Rinso said. Kuratsuchi looked up, eyes welling with tears, and her mouth drooped. Wah. Crying? Crying counts as time. Rinso showed no mercy. Kuratsuchi glared at Rinso hatingly, biting into her beef patty as if it were someone's flesh. Rinso's lips curved upwards, ignoring her. On the contrary, he felt a morbid sense of satisfaction. Soon, Kuratsuchi finished her breakfast. Rinso casually handed her a tissue. Seeing this, Kuratsuchi thought it was for her to wipe her mouth, and a triumphant smile appeared on her face. Have you been conquered by this young Mrs. Tears? Wait, useless minnow. You're already scrambling to curry favor with me, but I won't forgive you easily. What are you mumbling about? Take the tissue, you might need it when we go out, Rinso said, frowning. Kuratsuchi's expression froze, instantly turning red with rage. Minnow, Minnow, you hateful minnow, Iwayo. Ugh. Kuratsuchi suddenly started gagging. It turned out that Rinso had directly put his finger into her throat while she was yelling. You! Kuratsuchi slapped Rinso's hand away, furious. She looked around, grabbed a throw pillow from the sofa, and hurled it at Rinso. Rinso easily dodged, a mocking smile on his face. Child's play. He then gave her a thumbs-down gesture. Kuratsuchi completely lost her temper, charging at Rinso with her small fist swinging. Then, Rinso, who was more than a head taller than her, simply held her head with one hand, preventing her from moving an inch. She could only flail her fists wildly before collapsing to the ground, exhausted. Rinso showed a mocking expression. Minnow Kuratsuchi, if your body was half as strong as your mouth, this wouldn't happen. Kuratsuchi, completely red with rage, made her final protest. I'm never talking to you again. The Wagakure commercial street. Rinso and Kuratsuchi walked together. Rinso kept asking, "Really not talking to me anymore? If you don't talk, I won't give you lunch, you know." Kuratsuchi kept a cold face, offering no response. Rinso sighed helplessly, not expecting that he had gone too far and truly angered Kuratsuchi. "Fortunately, hand me a tissue," Rinso commanded. Kuratsuchi, still with a cold face, pulled a tissue from her pocket and handed it to Rinso, still not speaking. Fortunately, the results of his training wouldn't change. She had said she wouldn't talk to Rinso, and even the threat of no lunch didn't change that. Yet her so-called not talking just meant not speaking aloud. She still carried his bag, still handed him tissues without missing a beat. What was this called again? A female protagonist in a romance novel with a cold face, washing underwear? Rinso chuckled to himself and led Kuratsuchi to a toy store, deciding it was best to appease her. After all, such a handy little servant would be ashamed to upset too much. As for why they came to a toy store, it was naturally because, as a child, Kuratsuchi must love toys. Why was he so sure? The moment they entered the toy store, Kuratsuchi's eyes lit up, which was proof enough. Such pretty dolls, such cute plushies, cars that move by themselves. Kuratsuchi's eyes sparkled as she wandered around the toy store, stopping frequently in front of certain toys, clearly wanting to buy them. However, Kuratsuchi rummaged through her pockets and found only enough loose change for a snack, nothing more. She couldn't even afford the cheapest toy. It couldn't be helped. Her father, Kitsuchi, was afraid she would develop a bad habit of overspending, so he didn't give her much money on a daily basis, as food and clothes were provided at home anyway. Unlike Rinso, because he was an orphan, Kitsuchi and Inoki took good care of him, giving him a lot of money to look after himself. Thinking of this, Kuratsuchi became even more annoyed, puffing out her cheeks and mentally deciding to extend the period of not talking to Rinso. "Shop owner, this one, and that one, wrap them all up, I'll take them all." Rinso glanced around and directly selected all the toys Kuratsuchi had lingered over, telling the shop owner to wrap them up. Yes, the shop owner dared not underestimate Rinso. His demeanor indicated he was a big customer, and he quickly began wrapping the items. Seeing this, Kuratsuchi was about to be happy, thinking Rinso was buying them for her. But the next second, she remembered what had happened at home. She had mistakenly thought Rinso was handing her a tissue. This time, Rinso must be trying to recreate that situation again. Thinking of this, Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth and said, "You hateful Ueo." Beside her, Rinso had already taken the wrapped toys from the shop owner and said to Kuratsuchi, "What are you looking at? Aren't you going to come and take these?" Kuratsuchi immediately interpreted this as Rinso telling her to continue carrying his bags, and she fumed, nostrils flaring. Then, out of habit, she walked over and did as Rinso said, taking the toys. Rinso, seeing Kuratsuchi not speak, thought she was speechless with emotion. After leaving the toy store with Kuratsuchi, he continued to stroll. However, they hadn't walked far when a strong sense of danger suddenly arose. Oh no! Without any hesitation, Rinso immediately used a ninjutsu. Earth Release, Earth Golem Wall, Modified. As Rinso formed hand signs, a semicircular earth wall, similar to a wood golem wall, rose from the ground, enveloping him and Kuratsuchi. Boom! Boom! Rumble! Explosions erupted one after another, even causing strong tremors. Inside the earth golem wall, Rinso immediately shielded the bewildered Kuratsuchi in his arms. After a while, when the explosion stopped, Kuratsuchi's face was frighteningly red, and he finally let go. After letting go, Rinso immediately looked towards the high ground in the distance. There, the yellow-haired Deidara's figure was laughing excitedly. Rinso immediately realized that this was likely the beginning of Deidara causing explosions throughout the village, as mentioned in the original work. He and Kuratsuchi were unlucky to have run into it. No, I need to teach Deidara a lesson, Rinso thought to himself. Then, he said to Kuratsuchi, whose face was flushed and head bowed, "Kuratsuchi, you go home first. I need to go deal with the perpetrator of these explosions." Oh, okay. Kuratsuchi's nose twitched slightly, as if recalling the feeling of being suddenly shielded in Rinso's arms. Her cheeks flushed, and she responded dazedly. "All right, I'm going now. Get home as quickly as you can," Rinso said, then started to move. Kuratsuchi snapped out of it, looking at the toys she was carrying, and quickly asked, "What about the toys? Should I take them to your house first?" Rinso turned back, looking puzzled. "Why would you take them to my house? I bought these toys for you."